Did I ever tell you guys about the time that I was seeing a Broadway show or just gotten out of seeing a Broadway show?
Broadway is back.
It was a matinee. So like one of those classic scenarios where like the only people who are going to be in Times Square on a Wednesday afternoon are going to be like tourists and people from the Upper West Side in their 70s, right?
Yep.
And so I was walking toward 8th Ave to, get back to the subway or whatever. And as I walk down, I just hear a voice. I hear this man's voice going, "Ladies!" And I look,
and it was Jerry Lewis.
I look like over my shoulder, and it's this guy, and he is unhappy with the way that it's this guy, and there's like I think 3 or 4 women with him. So I'm assuming he went out with like his wife and his wife's friends.
Sure, okay.
And so he was very upset with the way that they were about to get into a cab. So again, ladies, and then the very next thing that I hear is, "What, Larry?" And it's just this incredible,
the most Upper West Side,
theater going memory. It was like one of those like, goddamn.
I have a weird memory. The first time I was ever in Times Square, just, it was not long after Barack Obama was elected president, but a little too long for something like this to keep going. Do you remember when everyone would like sell stuff and say it was Obama whatever?
It was like an Obama
this was
mug
2010.
Or like,
and so, but like people would just, no, it wasn't like a mug. It was like, if you remember that scene in the Boondocks where a guy's just selling water bottles on a street corner. He's like, "Get your Obama water." Like this guy, this dude who had like a radio announcer voice is just standing on a corner with like the little box that you have when you're at a baseball stadium and you're the snack guy.
Right.
Which you are, AJ and Josh, both of you.
Yeah.
That's your day job. But his thing, he just had this sign that said,
forced upon me.
Obama condoms. Now, did these condoms have Obama branding on them? No, they were just Durex.
Yeah.
Did they have a picture like taped to them? No.
Okay.
They were just Durex condoms, and this guy on a street corner in Times Square just going, "Obama condoms."
Was he selling?
Obama condoms. Get your Obama condom.
Was he selling? Were they sold?
Do you think he was just holding on to them?
I don't know. Like
just for safekeeping.
I don't know who buys this shit, but they must, right? Just like that guy who's always in the fucking subway tunnel who's selling incense, someone's got to be buying it. He's been doing it for decades. But I just remember sitting at a fucking intersection just waiting to cross for like 20 minutes because it takes so fucking long down there. And it's just, Obama condoms.
Oh, yes.
So many possible worlds, but we got this one. So many possible worlds, but we got this one.
Welcome to the worst of all possible worlds, the first and only Obama podcast. I'm the worst of all possible Joshes.
I'm the worst of all possible AJs.
I am the worst of all possible Brian's, getting worse every day because we have watched the movie Minions.
Yeah, I even getting through the intro just now was slightly challenging. I definitely feel some of my anxiety receptors having been triggered by this film, and as such, I lash out at other people when that happens.
That's going to happen a lot today.
My therapist has told me.
We're all going to be very angry with each other.
So we're triggered. We're triggered lib cucks.
This is a delight for me because I'm not. I wasn't triggered at all by this movie.
I know you fucking weren't.
And that makes me happy because it's so often the opposite on this podcast.
Right.
Prevert. What is wrong with you?
Anyway,
I don't know. So many things.
Every week on this show, we do a different case study in the pop culture of a dying empire, as is our wont. And most of the time, we like to cover stuff that we like in some way, shape, or form. That was not the case this week with Minions, but it is a fantastic case study in the pop culture of a number of different dying empires, actually.
Namely the Napoleonic.
Yeah.
Who the Minions once canonically served.
Yes.
And we will get there because there are a lot of evil people in history they served and some very specific evil people that they did not because they were busy.
That's right.
Doing other things.
They were otherwise occupied. No, AJ, you've read a little bit into the history of Minions. Yes. How it came about, the studio, stuff like that, right?
Yes. So when you talk about Minions, it's the story of this guy named Sergio Pablos, who worked on The Hunchback of Notre Dame, Tarzan, and was the lead character animator of Dr. Doppler on Treasure Planet, and he was nominated for an Annie for that. He came up with this screenplay called Evil Me, which he pitched and did all the original character designs for. He sold it to Illumination Entertainment, who had just started their own studio.
Illumination is that's Universal's studio, right?
Yes.
Were they at the time owned by the actual studio, or were they an independent? Do you happen to remember?
For Despicable Me, they were 100% already under Universal's umbrella, because if you watch the first Despicable Me movie, it's like there's NBC shit all over that thing.
Okay, sure.
There's like the logo, the branding, it's everywhere. Sergio Pablos eventually gets story by credit, but he is not a main screenwriter on it, and he would later go on to make the animated film Klaus for Netflix, which is actually a very good animated movie.
Sure.
Did you not like Klaus either?
No, I didn't watch it because I'm not a child.
Oh, but it's fun. It's a Christmas movie. Jesus Christ.
Oh my God.
I'm coming in swinging, motherfucker. This is what you did to me.
Brian, this is not what I did to you. I did not put Minions. I did not put Minions on the topics list. I didn't do it.
It's
I 100% did not.
It is you. I
didn't want to watch this movie.
I don't care what you did. This is your fault, and you know it.
Just because I didn't have the worst time watching Minions does not mean
there were. This is just reminding me that when we hit 300 on the Patreon, there were a lot of people that wanted to see us just get in a straight up fight.
Yeah,
this might be the episode for you, dear listeners.
Yeah, this is it. This is it.
This is a melee. I mean, so like Illumination is like the descendant, not even of like the degraded, horrible DreamWorks brand. It's a descendant of like the Fox animated movies, like
it's Blue
Ice
Sky.
Age and Robots and the Dr. Seuss adaptations.
Right, which is why in the first movie, one of the kids is wearing a Lorax shirt. Like, this is a very direct descendant of those movies. And they kind of look alike. I actually thought that a lot of those Fox movies were made by Illumination because they follow a very similar animated style.
Yes, very bad, like made-for-TV animation. Those movies that certainly happened.
They're definitely good at franchising, too. Like, that's always been a strength. They much like George Lucas, they seem to have a knack for, like, designing characters who will be really easy to merchandise.
And the Minions are that. It seems even pretty much from the word go in Despicable Me, like they're a fun little side thing. And, you know, it's always interesting watching children's animated movies and seeing the things that the animators really enjoy. And it seems like the Minions are their outlet to do a lot of physical comedy and do a lot of like their sort of like more Looney Tunes based instincts of what you can do in animation. But the limits, of course, it being in Despicable Me, it was like 2010. And the limitations of what you could do in a 3D movie at that point made it, and especially with the budget that they had, made it very impossible for them to like actually fully realize their stuff. So by the time...
More budget than anything, because like WALL-E had already come out in like 2006.
Well, that's true.
So,
that is That is true, but I think what they were going for with specifically like I think Hotel Transylvania actually does a much better job of this. Gendy Tartakovsky has a much better sense of like the animations that kids will find funny and that like transcend perhaps sometimes not the best scripts, but to make like actually like beautiful moments of animation. But this one was animated. Despicable Me started out as being animated by MacGuff, a Paris-based animation company.
Crime Dog.
Yes,
the Crime Dog.
MacGuff.
The Crime Dog.
Say on, MacGuff.
The dog of crime.
The dog of crime.
He takes a bite out of crime.
Yes, takes a bite out of the animation
He's the
budget.
Crime Dog.
And it was directed by Pierre Coffin and Chris Renaud. Pierre Coffin voices all the Minions.
I'm sorry, it's Pierre Coffin, and I will not hear it any other way for the rest of this program.
Now we care about pronouncing French names?
Yes, because I want to hurt you both.
Oh my
Pierre
God.
Coffin. Coffin. You gotta put it Pierre Coffin.
Pierre Coffin invented Minionese, and it is a combination of pretty much every language on the face of the earth. There's Japanese in there, there's Italian, there's Spanish, there's German, there's Hebrew,
French,
and French very predominantly, and it just sort of switches off depending on the scene. And so Despicable Me comes out, and it's fine. I think in terms of like the critical reaction to it, everyone was just kind of like, yeah, I mean,
well, it's interesting, like the way the Minions work too, because it's like when they were advertising the movie, it was just the name Steve Carell and the silhouette of Gru.
Right.
Their first trailer was just the first scene of the movie. There are no minions present. The minions are just a little part of the whole thing. The first scene of Despicable Me is a bunch of Americans going to Egypt and then they fall into an inflatable pyramid.
Yes.
Like there is no Steve Carell there.
But the first scene with Steve Carell proper, when we're being introduced to Gru as a character, it's mostly just physical comedy. Like it's not him doing his Gru voice.
Even saying physical comedy is giving them a lot of credit because there are very few gags.
It's a screenplay that Peter Travers of Rolling Stone referred to as ingenious.
Peter Travers of Rolling Stone only exists for movies to put his little pull quotes in their trailers.
Brian.
He is not a real critic. He's not a real man. No one has ever seen him alive.
He may or may not exist.
It's like that guy at the Post who was the first to report on Jeffrey Epstein's death. That's like not actually a real person. That's just a name that they use.
So Peter Travers is like 007. It's like a moniker. Okay, that just attaches to theater.
Or
credits.
similar names, Franklin W. Dixon and Carolyn Keene of Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew fame, respectively.
Wow.
Also not real people.
Of course, yeah.
We're getting all kinds of children's entertainment today.
But yeah, Despicable Me.
Wait, Josh, how many Hardy Boys books have you read?
Yeah,
a lot of them. I had them growing up. My dad would read them to me before bedtime, actually.
I've not read a single one.
My parents were into Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew, and we even had some of the crossovers. I never got into them, but I did read some of the Boxcar Children mysteries.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
We
I
had
read
all
some
those
Boxcar,
too.
yeah.
Why did that happen?
Why did the children
they
end up
went
living
from
in
the
the
first
boxcar?
book, where it's just like, here's some orphans running from their granddad who turns out is rich and nice, and they live in a boxcar and they like do Gary Paulson shit.
Right, and why did it pivot to being like they solve mysteries?
They solve mysteries with their fucking dog.
That was the thing at the time.
Yeah,
that was the nature. That was the style at the time.
that was the onion on the belt.
I think they are still publishing new Boxcar
No
Children
fucking
books.
way.
There are hundreds.
Good for them.
No.
Not good for them? Why not?
Bad for them. Bad for them.
Who cares? Who is
Let
the Boxcar Children
children
hurting?
rest.
I still want to do at some
No one's
point
paying them.
on this show. At some point, we need to do an episode about the Nancy Drew adventure games.
Yeah.
They are fucking
definitely.
hilarious. Like, they are very self-aware camp. They're a lot of fun.
I'm down for that. Unlike Self-Aware Camp, Despicable Me,
Yes.
I think the closest review I could find to my own opinion of it is Christy Lemire of the Associated Press wrote, "Kids will dig it, adults will smile with amusement, and no one will be any different afterward than they were walking into the theater."
The thing is how wrong she was.
Oh, yeah.
How fucking wrong she was about the allure of the little Tic Tac men on adults in America.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, the thing about, like, in terms of how it delivered against its budget, Despicable Me was produced on a budget of $69 million.
Yes.
And ended up globally well over, it recouped its investment and then some, obviously. Its total take, according to Box Office Mojo, was about $543 million. Against a $69 million budget, 543 is a good chunk of change. You're making your money back and then some.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Like you said, AJ, a mere preview of the filthy lucre that was to come. But you can
They make all these movies at the same budget level.
Yes.
Like no movie costs more than the first one, and they just keep making more and more. And because it's children's movies, your real market is at home.
But you can compare this just for the sake of comps, like Up, which came out in 2009, the year before Despicable Me was released, was a $175 million budget. So basically not quite 3 times as much, but like 2.5 times as much.
Yeah.
And grossed globally $735 million, which is not that much more. And when you account for the difference in budget, Despicable Me was almost as successful financially as Up.
The way Illumination does this is they actually utilize different animation techniques that make that bring down the rendering times and bring down cost in the animation. And what they use that money for is to get really, really like AAA voice talent.
Right.
And this is a holdover from
not voice talent. This is an important distinction.
Yes.
Not voice talent. names.
Big names.
These are not necessarily people who are actually good at voice acting. We'll get into this later.
And this is sort of a holdover from the Blue Sky days where you had Jim Carrey voice Horton, Here's a Who.
Yeah, Blue Sky, DreamWorks, even Disney to some degree was doing that, of course, with like Toy Story, having Tim Allen and Tom Hanks and Don Rickles. So like the having a movie star thing, even DreamWorks two-dimensional
and Wallace
animation
Shawn.
was like...
We should mention Wallace, the big box
That's
office
true,
draw
that's
of Wallace
true.
Shawn.
I mean, Wallace Shawn is a good draw for a kid's movie, honestly, because that fucking voice is just incredible.
He is a great voice actor. That's the thing. He was so good in like a Goofy movie. He's one of the best performances in that film, in what I would argue is a very well-rounded suite of performances in that film.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can choose to prioritize either people who are right for the roles, and then maybe if they're a name, that's a bonus.
Yeah.
Or you can get the biggest names imaginable.
This franchise, as a whole, is the 15th highest grossing film franchise of all time.
Christ.
This is...
Hell yes.
This Minions combined with Despicable Me is the highest grossing animated film franchise of all time.
The
The
above
highest.
Toy Story.
Yes.
I'm losing all 5 of my senses right now. Everything is getting dark.
It's everything's turning yellow. I'm speaking in tongues.
The Minions are Pentecostals. I do want people to realize that.
They are in fact. They're on fire for the Lord, and their Lord is Gru. So the
I love that you're picking up the lingo.
Oh yeah. The film. This is all your fucking fault. So you know what? I'm gonna relish this Minions episode.
The Minions have been washed clean by the blood of the Lamb.
Hey, listen. There's got to be a meme about that, right? There's got to be someone. Who has made that
the
meme.
thing is, like, so many Minion memes on Facebook are religious.
Yes.
Like, I'm
Right.
sure if you just type in Jesus Christ Minion Google image search, just do that right now.
I'm
you
going
will
to do it right
find,
now.
Do it with the safe search off.
There
trust
is
me.
comfort in the Lamb, and it'll be one of the fucking purple Minions from Despicable Me 2.
Oh hell yes. Oh, these are.
Did
These
that
are,
work?
It
It worked.
No, it's
Oh my
interesting
God.
because it's like a 50-50 balance of like memes that were made to make fun of that tendency, like like really ironic shit, and then the real deal. Like this, for instance, like everything that's related. I'm going to share my screen here so you guys can see this.
So that our listeners can see.
Right now, what I'm looking at here is this is from Pinterest, and we've got a Minion raising his hands up into the air.
I believe that's Stuart. I believe
Sure,
that's
fine,
Stuart
fuck
or Bob.
Sure.
And it says,
dare you.
every morning I wake up, I am blessed. No matter how much drama is in my life or how much pain my body may be in, I know God is watching over me.
I really like one that's off to the side here where it's like a Minion doing a mischievous face, which you usually couple with an innuendo. But here, the text just says the most important part about Christmas is the first 6 letters.
Yeah, that's true.
He's got a
You
little
can't
Santa
argue with
hat
that.
on.
Dear God, I know that I am not perfect. I know sometimes I forget to pray. I know I have questioned my faith. I know sometimes I loose my temper.
Looses it upon the world.
But thank you for loving me unconditionally and giving me another day to start over again. Like, why is it not just like Larry the Cucumber? That guy's already Christian.
And there's so many of
I
these.
think Pinterest is like 75% Minion memes at this
I mean,
point.
if we navigate over here, and again,
Oh my God! So this is a Minion, and he's doing like puppy eyes.
Yeah.
And his like toes are turned inward, and he's
got
like
some real bottom eyes, some real
yeah. He's like trying to come on to somebody somewhere.
Yeah.
And then the text is in italics too. It says the first ever cordless phone that's capitalized.
yeah,
by the way,
cordless and phone both capitalized.
was created by God. He named it Prayer. ... There's an ellipsis in here for some reason. It never loses its signal. And you, just the letter U, they had room for the whole word.
Yeah.
Never have to capital letter recharge it. Use it anywhere.
I'm going to print these out and post them all over my room so I don't forget. The Minions take off. All these memes start happening online. It seems like people will really, really embrace this thing. So,
And the interesting thing is, like, in Despicable Me 1, they play a not too large role. They're not on screen for most of the movie.
Yeah, they do some
In
comic
Despicable
relief.
Me 2, even after they've caught fire, they're not there fucking at all. The Minions like disappear for most of the movie so that they can get sort of funneled into this weird little scheme where they turn purple so that they're more marketable, and then they're evil for 5 minutes before they turn good again, and then the movie's done. But it's all in the advertising. Like the advertising for, I think, Despicable Me 2 is just 3 minions singing Barbara Ann by the Beach Boys, but it's banana. They're singing ba-na-na instead of ba-baran, which I've always been bothered by the way they sing the word Barbara in that song. I'm bothered by a lot of things.
You know what I prefer to sing?
What do you prefer to sing?
I prefer to sing bomb, 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 Iran.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
The Minions also did that.
Yeah, they actually did it before John McCain.
Yeah.
They endorsed John McCain. No one remembers this, but they were on the Straight Talk Express.
Well, that's the point. I think John McCain, it's just their natural inclination, the Minions, is to serve the most evil person possible.
Right,
so I feel
but-
like going after John McCain makes plenty of sense.
Not always, right? There are a couple instances where the movie teases that they could actually go to the more evil people, and then they just don't. But
right.
that's,
Well, I mean, because the first movie they're with Gru. Gru is not special. Like,
No.
he pulls something off at the end of the first movie. He shrinks the moon briefly. But like up until that point, he's just a villain in a world full of villains.
Yeah, he's a disappointment to his mom, who is played by Julie Andrews, and a delightful vocal performance, I think. So this spinoff was sort of inevitable, right?
Yeah.
Minions were always going to get their own movie. Minions is directed by Pierre Coffin.
Sorry, no, you're getting this right. God damn it!
Okay.
It's Pierre Coffin.
Pierre Coffin.
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 So Minions is directed by Pierre Coffin and Kyle Balton. And it's written by Brian Lynch, who is essentially the Illumination screenplay guy. So he wrote the Secret Life of Pets movies.
With Louis C.K.
Yeah, yep.
Oh,
only in the
hell
first
yes,
one. Only in the
dude.
first one. He was replaced.
I mean, I knew about it before it like even came out. Like when Louis finally got brought down. Everyone was like, why is Louis C.K. in this fucking movie?
Right.
Like, this is just very strange.
Yeah, well, he's also not a particularly good voice actor either. He's not a very good actor
it's not
in general,
like when it's not like when George Carlin did Shining Time Station, where it's like,
Right.
that's kind of surprising, but he was actually like really wonderful.
Well,
Yeah.
it's also like who he actually is as a person. Like if you see Carlin outside of his stand-up persona, he actually is just like a really sweet grandfatherly kind of guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
When he's not just loaded full of cocaine.
Right.
But again, it is the Illumination tendency to just like, we need the name. We need the name in there as opposed to actually matching it to the performance. Brian Lynch also wrote the story for Minions: The Rise of Gru, which is a movie that Josh and I have not seen, but Brian watched today.
I watched it because I was going to watch all the movies to understand the lore. So I watched Despicable Me, the second one, Minions, and Minions 2, not realizing that there was a Despicable Me 3 between Minions 1 and Minions 2. And once again, I blame AJ.
What?
As you
How
should.
could this possibly be my fault?
Because fuck
It's your fault.
you.
You don't have
It's your
access
fault.
to
You didn't
Google?
prepare me.
It's your fault.
I didn't prepare you. This was not my idea.
This
AJ's
is a
fault.
cheerocracy,
Blame
and
AJ.
both of us
AJ's fault.
cheerleaders
Blame
are
AJ.
blaming you. We're awkwardizing you.
I'm going to make Amanda Green write a musical about this, and it's going to be fine.
Guys, if you think this isn't funny, strap in.
It's about to get even less funny, motherfucker.
So here's some facts about Minions. They're 3 feet 7 inches tall.
Okay.
They're Swiss.
Oh.
No.
That's true.
they're not.
That is canonically true. Sorry, that broke my partner. If you can hear
if
hear them.
if anything, they are Croatian.
They're not Croatian. They are canonically
No,
Swiss.
come on.
Yes.
Come on. They have the poor moral character of a Croat.
I was thinking that they're incredibly tiny and extremely racist, so they're probably Serbian, actually.
This is a quote from the Wikipedia. They have no discernible noses, but seem capable of smelling, as they are shown smelling fruit and are affected by the fart gun.
Right, and they have butts.
Yeah.
We know this.
We know they have butts. No
Minions-
genitalia. A little self-conscious about their nipples, apparently.
Uh-huh.
That's like their naughty bits.
We don't know that they have no genitalia.
I just wanted to point
Might
out
be
that
inside of
Minions
them.
was produced on a $74 million budget.
How much did it make, Josh, at the global box office?
Globally, it made $1.1 billion.
Uh-huh.
That's billion with a B.
Yep.
336 million in America, 823 million international.
That is just theatrical box office.
Yeah.
Like, think about all the stickers.
Oh yeah, the
and
merchandising.
fucking plush toys.
The theme parks. Fucking Universal Studios
Sure,
is covered
yeah.
in Minions.
This thing is a fucking money printing machine. Was it really? Was it Minions, the release of the actual film Minions, that really put the Minions front and center as opposed
it was
to
really it was really Despicable Me. It was really
Okay.
from the
word go.
jump.
Yeah, people
it was
love-
already
latched on.
showing up on Facebook. It was already showing up on bumper stickers. That's what I seem to remember is just all of a sudden seeing a bunch of cars in Michigan with Minions on them.
Yeah, as goes Michigan, so too goes America. That's
Michigan.
What?
Minion chicken.
What?
Minion chicken.
no.
What are you doing?
Minion chicken.
Put that down.
Minion chicken.
It's dangerous.
Minion chicken.
See, now you're just sounding like a minion. This is Satan. This is devilish. This is evil. So we begin with cellular life.
Yeah.
We do. With just single cell life forms.
Hold on, Brian. That's not where we start. Where we start
Yes,
is
it
the
is.
Minions singing the universal theme
No, we
over
don't.
over the globe.
That doesn't count as the beginning.
It does when there's Minions singing the theme song.
No,
and you
Okay,
no,
instantly
fine.
want to
It
die.
counts less, actually. It
Minions
counts
sing
less.
the fucking John Williams. Ba, 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 ba.
That is not John Williams.
Oh, it's not?
I always thought
that is
that.
no. That is Jerry Goldsmith, the composer behind Star Trek
Right.
and The Planet of the Apes and
Oh.
Alien. That is not John Williams.
Okay,
John
but I
Williams
knew
did the 20th Century Fox
That's right.
fanfare.
That's right.
Oh,
but I knew
okay.
it was
That's
it was
a
one
conflict of interest.
Of course.
What if
But
they did it for
de-
all studios?
If we spend this much time in the details, it will take us 8 hours to recap Minions, and I don't want that to
I
happen.
don't want to recap it. I'm trying to keep it from happening.
Me too. I want to move through this as quickly as possible. We have to at least
Okay,
talk about the
fuck
major
it.
fucking beats because the movie begins as a nature documentary.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be like
no, the way that you say it makes it sound like a good idea, but they don't actually like go for it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Ugh.
If they had actually decided to stick to the concept and it was like this is a nature documentary about Minions in the style of like Disney's thing where they threw the
Grand
lemmings off the
Canyon,
cliff.
yeah.
Yeah.
that
Vanishing
could
Prairie.
potentially be a fun framing. They have this David Attenborough style voiceover for like a minute, and then they just drop the framing entirely.
Well, okay.
That's Jeffrey Rush.
It
by
is
the
Jeffrey
way.
Rush. And here's my question about this. I wonder, because they did this with Miyazaki movies when they brought them over from Japan too, where they added like a voiceover for the American audience.
Oh yeah,
And
like
I-
the original Nausicaa release.
Yeah, and I wonder if this Jeffrey Rush thing is
I would believe that it was sort of like an after the fact reimagining of what happened because studio heads got involved if it wasn't for the rest of the movie.
That
Because
feels right.
the whole movie does hint at this idea of being like a classic cartoon that tells its story without dialogue or with as little dialogue as possible,
right.
but then it continually goes back to just having dialogue around.
Right.
Even to the point where like when it's just Minions together, they all of a sudden just start saying everything in English.
Right.
yeah. Or at least like the ends of sentences in English.
Yeah,
or like
it's like, but
phrases,
even because they don't believe that they can actually set up a good intention or a good cartoon premise, and I believe them. They can't.
Right, exactly. Yeah, we pretty quickly see through the animation itself that like that really deep animated based storytelling is not something that this studio is capable of.
Yeah,
Right.
and like when you look at Blue Sky, a lot of those movies, and like DreamWorks too, it's just like it's a lot of dialogue based stuff. The Scrat stuff in Ice Age always works. It's
Right.
always very well done,
Yeah.
sort of classic Warner Brothers type animation.
Right.
And then it just becomes a story where Hank Azaria and Ray Romano bitch at each other.
yeah.
Hank Azaria? Do you mean Dennis Leary?
Hank Azaria, he's the sloth, isn't he?
No, that's John Leguizamo.
John Leguizamo, same thing. It's
Wow.
That's the same thing. Come on.
Wow, no.
If you want to cast John Leguizamo and you can't get him, you're going to get Hank Azaria, and the other way around.
Well, in this movie, you're not going
You-
to get any
know
of
it's true.
those. Instead, you're going to get the same guy doing all the Minions, and
Yeah.
and Jeffrey Rush is the
and
narrator.
who is the voice of the Minions? Pierre Coffin.
Okay, thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Brian. Very useful. I like the implication that man is the absolute worst species that ever came around because the minions are instantly drawn to the most despicable species they can,
first,
and man
first
appears.
they serve a dinosaur, and then the dinosaur dies from a rock.
Well, they keep killing all of their masters, basically.
Also, like a good premise that they don't actually follow through for the rest of the movie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
kind of because you're right. Like they kill off a pharaoh, they kill off Dracula, they kill off Napoleon Bonaparte himself.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
vampires are real in this universe, which was kind
Yeah,
of
sure,
baffling
Why
to me.
not? Why not?
It's not Vlad Tepes, and it's like really the Middle Ages. That's the biggest villain of the time.
So they end up in a cave, like a glacial cave, very conveniently right
Yes.
before the rise of fascism in Europe.
Yes.
Very, very, very convenient.
Which is interesting because minions are known to kill off their masters, and they're already shaped like cyanide pills.
right, they they could have put them down in the
bunker.
bunker.
Just
And
Eva
Hitler's
Braun
like, I have
sitting
one
there.
final plan, and we're gonna win it. And then they're like, here's your dinner, and he's like, great. Oh, this tastes a little nutty. And then he
Yes, and then he usually dies.
Just Ava Braun sitting there being like, but I don't want to eat the little yellow guys. They are so cute. Anyway.
They are hungry for banana.
They like papaya. They want to fuck the fire hydrants.
As a result of
Yeah.
the minions entering this period of extended cavern, they build a little village that looks like the village from Riven.
Yeah, no, it is. It is that.
Which
That's what Riven is about.
That's right. That's right. But eventually, they get bored there. Kevin, who's the sort of leader minion, decides to deliver a speech. It's like, we should leave the cave.
Yeah.
And so they go and they leave the cave. They get on a boat and they come ashore in New York City.
Well, we
Yeah.
should
Just
establish
just
all
three of them.
City.
It's
Yeah.
just a scouting expedition.
Yeah, and we
Right.
should like take this moment to establish the three minions that we have. We have
Should we?
We have Kevin, who is the tall one. He is the leader. He's the smart minion. Then we have Stuart, who is the showboat and a complete waste of time. He doesn't do anything for the entire movie. Besides,
that's the one. That's the
that's-
minion
that's
that you're
the useless
passing
one.
moral judgment on.
Yeah.
Kevin is good.
Yeah.
Kevin is noble,
Kevin
honest.
is doing things. Kevin sacrifices
I
himself
cannot
for the
fucking
greater
believe
good
that
of
you are a
Minionkind.
Kevin head.
Yeah, I'm a huge Kevin head.
Jesus Christ. This is going out public. This
Yeah,
is
this
one of our
is.
main
This is.
episodes.
I am
That's not
supporting.
gonna,
I'm
Brian's
Kevin
not going to
supporter.
cut any of that for time. He's going to. All of our listeners are going to know who you are as a
You're
result of
going
this
to lose
episode.
Luxembourg.
Well, here's the thing.
one
You are
thing
going
that
to.
you
You
thought
are
we'd never
posting
lose.
cringe, and you are going to lose subscribers.
Kevin is my second tier minion, actually, because my favorite minion is Bob because he's the child and the idiot minion. Like everyone just calls him an idiot. He has a little bear, and
He has heterochromia.
and
for some
unfortunately,
reason.
here's
He's like
the thing.
Max Scherzer. He's the Max Scherzer of the minions.
You all have to understand that I
His
went,
fastball isn't anywhere near as impressive.
I went
Wow,
into
Jesus
this.
Christ.
I went into this movie thinking it was going to be like the worst time, and it's.
and it
on.
was.
It wasn't.
Come
It was
on.
fine. I thought it
Come
was fine.
on.
And I don't like this. I don't
Fuck
like
you.
that I felt something for Bob or that I felt
What?
something for
What?
Kevin.
No.
But I did. Look,
You
I did. I'm sorry.
You
Hold on.
disgusting pig.
I can't-
You rude thought.
I'm honestly like, I'm not ironically mad right now. I'm genuinely upset with you.
I had an emotional reaction. Like I can't. Like,
Why?
I
No,
get
you
it. I
didn't.
Why?
I get.
Oh my God.
I'm trying to tell you, but you're screaming at me.
I don't want to know. I just want to pass judgment.
That's true. Look, that's fair. That's fair. And I'm just gonna hold my bear and cry, and you're gonna
This
think
is
it's
not
adorable.
a dialectic.
No,
this
it's
is
not.
a polemic.
No, it's not.
Oy.
Look, I here's the thing. I feel good that I feel this way? No, I don't.
Oh,
but
okay.
I get it. Like I understand
You're turning
why
Gen X.
minions are likable. Like I get the appeal.
Well, why don't you let that would actually be really interesting then, because I don't understand the appeal. If you could sort of outline what was it about them that you found to be so, I don't know, such a hook, so appealing.
Well, I think they can be very cute, and I think that they act like children, and that can be very funny sometimes. Like, I don't think most of the jokes in this movie work, and a lot of the vocal performances, I think, really miss the mark. But there are jokes in this thing that really work for me. And there is something about, and you put a child figure in any sort of movie who is confused and lost or scared and afraid, and I'm going to feel something for them. That's just what that is the curse of me watching a movie like Minions. So when Bob is upset,
dare you have a heart?
well, when Bob is upset, I get upset. And when you know, Kevin, whenever any
I couldn't
character,
even keep their fucking names straight. That's what's so wild to me
well,
about
and
this.
I don't blame you for that, because I think that Stuart is such an undefined character in this and does so little that it's very easy to mix
Stewart
them up.
keeps ruining everything. Kevin and Bob they keep delivering every scene, but Stewart, he's breaking this film.
It's not
to be clear,
boring.
my point here is not I can't keep the three of them straight from each other with their names. My point is I can't remember their names. Like I'm amazed that you have this strong of a connection.
Well, there's so little other characters in this movie that like you kind of have to.
All of the movies, Kevin seems to be the one that gets named the most.
Yes.
They just say Kevin over and over
Because
and
he's
over
the de
again.
facto
So
leader,
I remember who Kevin is.
Yeah. But again, Stewart is a name that I have to like force myself to remember, and Bob is just funny because it's Bob.
Stewart is not delivering.
He's just not. Well, he's supposed to be like the superstar, but then he never pursues that really in the entirety of the story, and at the end he gets an electric guitar for no reason. Anyway,
Dead weight.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, the three of them arrive in New York City, and they see a giant poster for Richard Nixon.
That's
a man
supposed
you
to
can
be
trust.
a joke, right?
It is supposed to be a joke, but it's also
also
why didn't they go
feels
work
like-
for Nixon?
Right. It feels like it was like a previous draft of the script was they went and worked at the White House under Nixon.
And what a missed opportunity. They should have done that.
I pretty quickly was frustrated with this film's portrayal of New York City because you can tell when a movie cares about the specificity of its setting and when it doesn't.
Right.
And this to me was a great example of it just not caring. It was like, what's a big city? How about New York, right? They go down to a place that is like supposed to be like Macy's, but it's not Macy's.
Called
and also
Fancy's.
it's not even a reference to Macy's. It's just a department store that exists.
Fancy sounds vaguely like Macy's.
It's like
doesn't.
there were a lot of department stores in New York. You had Stearns over by Bryant Park.
Yeah, Bloomingdale's?
There were lots of department stores. So like you got real stuck on this Macy's thing because it doesn't look like Macy's because it has like an open atrium. But
Well, it seemed like they were trying to make a reference to that, but then failed to pin down the specific. This is a bugbear for me when you adopt a real life setting and you don't treat that setting with any of the specificity that it deserves.
yeah,
which
New
maybe
York
that's
just
a weird.
doesn't have enough movies about it.
Right.
Yeah,
there are
it's true
not
that you
enough
could
movies
reference.
that are really specific about New York.
That were
There's
shot in
nothing that's
1968. There's nothing.
ever featured R.H. Macy's, the interior, or anything like
Right.
that.
They spend incredibly limited amount of time here because they're almost immediately off to Orlando.
If they wanted to really work for the most evil man in New York in 1968, they should have gone right over to the Triborough. Robert Moses had his office right under that fucking bridge.
And you know what? Nothing gets the kids in seats. Nothing gets those butts in seats by being like Robert Moses. You know, the kids
Look,
are just
I
clamoring
just
for
watched
him.
the second Minions movie, and it's all just jokes about the 70s, so they could have easily done a Robert Moses thing. I was really hoping that like the directors had a very weird axe to grind, where like the Minions would end up working for Andy Warhol or something. They're like, that's actually the guy who was the most evil man.
Correct.
In 1968.
But yes, they do hitchhike their way to Orlando because what we discover is there's going to be a villain conference down there.
Yeah, because villainy in this universe is like a job like any other job.
Right.
Despicable Me franchise like always has to go back to the fact that it's like this is a world of supervillains. There are no superheroes, it seems.
No.
But like it just forgets about it. Like most people don't seem to know that there are supervillains.
Yeah,
Right.
or
Even though
care really.
There are supervillains. Like even though like in this movie the fucking throne for England gets stolen away from the Queen.
Yeah.
And like that is not a blip on anyone's radar
Well, it's all
by the time we
larceny.
get to the
Like
modern day.
all
Yeah.
supervillains want in this world is to steal the biggest thing. Like the first Despicable Me movie, Gru wants to steal the moon and then succeeds in doing
Yeah.
that.
And it's like, you know, you're trying to do an inversion of a classic kids movie by being like, well, here's one about villains. It's not the first time that that's been done, but it's like you have a framework that you can work from and they just aren't actually interested in it, which maybe is for the best because Megamind came out the exact same year as Despicable Me.
Right. But that is specifically superheroes and supervillains. This is more like a James Bond villain. Or like, except that Minions
or like
exist.
old detective comics or something. I don't
Yeah,
know. I feel like it's squishy.
Well, all the Despicable Me movies, all their fonts are the Jerry Bruckheimer like action movie fonts of the 90s and like late 80s. And so it seems to me that Gru is just like a super genius. Like no one in this world has superpowers. They all are just very, very smart and can build technology that can then mimic what are essentially superpowers. So they go to VillainCon after getting picked up by a family also going to VillainCon who are a family of just bank robbers.
Yeah,
played by
that
Michael Keaton and
also-
Allison Janney as the two.
That also qualifies as villainy here, I guess. It's just bank robbing.
I will say this: Michael Keaton and Allison Janney are both having the fucking time
They're
of their
fun.
life
and they're
doing
well
these
cast.
roles.
They're so well cast in this.
Another thing that I noticed about this sequence too, because as they're on their way down to Orlando, they rob a bank, and this then leads to a high-speed chase down the highway. From an animation perspective, I thought it was so interesting how this scene had clearly been like storyboarded out. They worked out the whole thing.
Yeah.
But the animation is just so inert. Like nothing has a sense of real weight to it.
Yeah.
That's something that you especially will notice in Pixar films that they do, especially The Incredibles, which I do want to talk about in a a bit.
Why? Does it
the
have some
whole art
similarities to the art style of this
Just a
film,
little
Josh?
bit. Just a little teeny bit.
But yeah, like I said when I was watching the first movie, like this feels like I'm watching a CGI animated TV show, and that feeling never really goes away. Some of the Minion scenes are a little bit more fluid, but you're right, they're still completely weightless.
I mean, at one point, they knock over like entire telephone poles, which sets off this chain reaction that leads to a water tower collapsing.
Yeah.
And none of that, it feels like you're knocking over toothpicks. You don't have the sense of weight or momentum that you get. And again, that's something that Pixar always excels at.
Right.
And so you really, and those set pieces tend to be a central part of their movies. And so when somebody tries to do that thing and can't do it, you really notice why it's happening mechanically.
Yeah. And as they're traveling down to Orlando, we get a cutaway back to check on all the other Minions who are still in their ice palace. And there's a scene where they're all playing soccer. And I thought it was very funny.
You did?
Yeah, they're just very lackadaisically playing soccer, and you just watch the soccer ball slowly roll into the goal, and then like 2 seconds after it's in, the goalie jumps to try and block it, and then the whole crowd just goes yay. And I thought it was very funny. I think it's a very funny bit.
I think it's something that could be funny,
Yeah.
but it's not something that is funny.
Well,
to me.
Same as the family that robs banks. Something that could be funny, but like the actual joke of it doesn't. Like they haven't mined it for what it's worth.
Well, it does, because that one in particular doesn't get gritty enough for me. Like it really needs to get into but it can't, because it's like this very sanitized, clean version of villainy. But the funny version of that joke, I think, is that actual people are getting dismembered and murdered by this very wholesome family. I think that's
got to be the joke.
But in this sanitized environment, it can't make it. And so they hit Orlando, and it's swampland because it's 1968 and there's nothing there yet.
By the way, the only way to access VillainCon, private automotives, you have to have your own car. It's a lot like Robert Moses in the way that he designed cities.
Josh,
just wanted to throw that out there.
Listen to me. I need you to listen to me. They're not going to put Robert Moses in the Minion movie.
They should have. They should have done it.
They just can't.
They should have done it.
They won't
Minions
do
3: Rise of the Power Broker.
But although here's what I will say
Everybody
that's kind of interesting about what we discover when we get into VillainCon. There is this obsession with bureaucracy in this universe.
The first Despicable Me is about Gru trying to get a loan to fund his villainy.
From Will Arnett, yeah.
And, our heroes, the Minions, their whole thing is they want to see Scarlet Overkill, who's the world's first female supervillain.
Yeah.
Apparently, she's got the keynote slot at VillainCon.
Yeah. Everybody wants to be her henchman. She doesn't have
Everybody
henchmen.
wants to be her henchman. Everybody wants to sit in the bureaucracy underneath her. And so this is a moment where I just wanted to talk about how thematically this movie is sort of in conversation with The Incredibles.
Sure.
Because The Incredibles is a movie that's all about, and other people have talked about this in a way more articulate way than I could, but Brad Bird is a fucking, Randian freak, right? He loves all of Ayn Rand's shit.
Yeah. The Incredibles is a fantastic objectivist movie.
Yes. In which, the best people, the most extraordinary people,
the Ubermensch
are given the ability to do what they want, how they want to do it freely, or at least they should. In that the biggest impedance toward a just world is one in which the extraordinary people cannot make extraordinary things happen.
Because of tort laws.
And also how unextraordinary people should never try to be extraordinary, but should get out of the way of the extraordinary. This being said, The Incredibles is a great film.
It's a fantastic movie.
I love it. This is sort of mirrored in a way in Minions, where there is also sort of these people who are incredible at what they do, in this case, the villains,
Yeah.
the dream, if you cannot achieve that level of evilness, is to exist in their bureaucracy. It's actually quite similar, I think, to The Incredibles.
That you have to make a bureaucracy for the incredible people. Yeah. Like you become the bureaucracy.
And maybe the people who are at lower levels of the bureaucracy aren't quite as incredible as the ones at the top, but they at least have the opportunity to like do something in a way that fulfills their needs.
Right.
But again, that it's the people who are the best who ought to be controlling, or in this case, the worst, because they're despicable.
It shows what the movie could have been and then just never quite gets there because we spend so much time with Scarlet Overkill.
Yeah.
Who is a character?
I just don't think that the movie could have been that because a lot of gags are written in these movies. Yeah. Because here's the thing, I have met one of the gag writers for the Despicable Me movies.
Oh, interesting.
He is a depressing jaded Dutchman.
Why would he be depressed or
he's
jaded?
He's literally a Dutch
like
from the Netherlands.
Oh, no.
A Nederlander. Those are separate from the writing of the movie overall.
Amazing.
So like it can't be integrated into the story because it's not the same people. It's the Minions writing the Minions jokes.
And I think that's also another thing about why, I mean, to point to another example of an animated movie where bits make sense in the broader context would be something like Coco, Pixar's Coco, where you've got all of those visual gags, bits, setups, and so forth that are to do with the bureaucracy of sort of the world of the world
afterlife,
of the dead. And it makes sense because it's like, oh, you can have these moments. You can have a bit about like an overly slow clerk, and that can play into the plot in some meaningful way.
Well, and the thing is, like with animation, classically what happens with animation, I don't think this is what happens at Illumination at all. Animation is made sort of scene by scene. Animated movies are developed by animators who are working out a certain idea in a given scene, and then those things start to get woven into the larger thing, and then they start to refine the animation for each one from the animatics or the storyboards or whatever they have.
Right.
So it's actually a very experimental process. Even the biggest like Disney movies, this is always like if you watch The Sweatbox, even into the 90s, it's still being made scene by scene. If you watch behind the scenes of the Shrek movies over at DreamWorks, they're still doing a sort of scene by scene development. And I think with Minions, with Despicable Me, with anything that Illumination does, Mario, whatever, it's they are making a whole movie based on an outline, and then they are getting gag writers to do specific gags. And so it's happening in a different phase in the process, and those gag writers are really the ones who should be developing the movie over time. And that's not what's happening.
Right. Because gags, bits, when something is a callback for the sake of a callback, a joke for the sake of a joke, if something doesn't weave its way into the broader fabric of a thing, then it becomes its own little isolated thing that draws attention to the thing for the sake of the thing, as opposed to advancing the thing in its entirety forward in a meaningful way.
The joke becomes isolated, much like your penis would be if it were wrapped in an Obama condom.
That's a callback. That's how it's done.
Oh my God.
So the Minions become Scarlet Overkill's fucking minions because they steal a ruby, or they're able to like.
And again, remember, it's just these three minions the whole time. Like there's another thing going on with the other minions that is totally separate from the rest of the movie and doesn't even really have a plot.
No, it's just them reuniting eventually with the three minions, and it's their journeys across the world.
And Scarlet Overkill, we should maybe take like a minute or two to describe what her deal is. She's evil. She has a dress.
Wants to be queen.
She has a dress that's also a rocket, which comes into play later on.
Yeah,
it's a cool design. I like that design.
I feel like with a character whose name is like Scarlet Overkill, you want to have an outfit that is like, oh, it's a lily, but it's gilded, or she's wearing a hat on top of another hat. Like you want to really play, like that's a little Venture Brothers-y, is like, but really play with the puns there. I guess they're also trying to do a play on the name Scarlett O'Hara, but that doesn't really land.
And it wouldn't, because that's not the joke.
It'd be for kill.
Yeah. And like Sandra Bullock is putting in pretty disappointing work here.
This is another thing.
Like she's better than this.
And to the point, I think of like what you were saying, Brian, about how they sort of assemble everything and then they slot shit in. That's clearly the approach that they take toward voice casting as well. They are not developing these characters in collaboration with the voice artists.
Yeah.
Clearly the voices.
Yeah. You can, like, their tone doesn't match what they do in a given scene.
Right.
Like visually, what's happening on their faces is completely disconnected in many cases from the vocal performance.
Yeah, and it's such a shame because, as we said, Sandra Bullock is a very good actor and is better than what performance she gives in this movie. But it's also, this is not just a symptom of Minions. Like, this is the entire Illumination catalog across the board has this problem, and occasionally it's luck for the most part. Like Steve Carell voicing Gru is great because they're on the exact same page at this point. And I would argue that it actually gets even more refined in the later movies. Like, they need a movie to figure out what the voice is, but when you only have a character that's in one movie, you can't do that, right? It's just, you got this one shot and I think you blow it.
But it's not as if this is a problem that is endemic to animation. Like, Disney and Pixar have nailed this shit for years.
Even with getting big celebrities to do it. I mean, Tim Allen is doing the work of his career in the Toy Story movies.
Correct.
And Tom Hanks is also quite extraordinary in those movies, I would argue.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he is. I'm just saying Tim Allen does not hit those levels anywhere else in his career.
Yeah. But it's also like, it just comes down to money too. It's like how much they're willing to spend, because what it sounds like to me is maybe like an afternoon.
I mean,
as opposed to like coming in and doing retakes once the animation gets more finalized.
Bill Murray as Garfield. It's Bill Murray recording on a single day, doing the whole script of Garfield. Whereas because animation is developed over time, a lot of times what happens is you will have a short recording session, but then they're going to call you back later because they've changed to something. You're going to come back in and record new lines, and then come back in months later and record new lines. That's why, again, using Shrek as an example, because I think Shrek is kind of the bridge between sort of the classic, like, this is how Disney gets a movie made versus like much more crass commercial stuff, but still relatively well done. Shrek had Chris Farley in that movie for years and years and years, and then he died, but they were still developing the movie. So they couldn't use his voice because they still had to make new scenes. So that's when they called Mike Myers.
You know, all of this started with Robin Williams doing the genie in Aladdin.
Right.
Like, he was the first big celebrity name, and his whole thing was just like, you will not put my name in the title. You will not put me anywhere
His was
near
like, I will not be a celebrity in your fucking movie.
Right.
And then they fucking did it. They fucking did it anyway.
At what point in the animation development process did they do the voice acting? Like, were they watching? When they were doing it, were they actually? Did they have the opportunity to look at anything while they voiced it over?
That's a very good question.
Was it a storyboard? Was it an animatic? Was it a fully fleshed out animation? Like, where were they in the process?
Like a good animated movie, you're going to start with the voices. You might have a character model in place, but you're going to work off of the voice actor and then get that animation going. So that's why Genie works so well, right? Because with that, they allow Robin Williams to improvise and everything else. So like, that gives them the room to animate the way that they want. But you can see some like behind the scenes features on like the shitty Michael Eisner era direct to video Disney sequels, like the Beauty and the Beast Christmas. Right. They're actually syncing their vocal track to
the animation?
Animated sequences.
Wow.
And I would not be surprised if the voice acting comes sort of in the middle of the process in a movie like this.
Right.
Or there's just something about the way that they send this off to the French animation studio and they're just not that interested in mimicking the performance. But a lot of movies, when you go down the scale of expenditure, it's going to end up being more like when you dub something into another language.
And it feels uncanny, actually, sometimes, especially watching Scarlet Overkill, because her face will be doing like this very sort of like pointed, like jokey kind of performance. And Sandra Bullock's vocals are just very actually subdued.
Yeah, they're like wry.
And wry, like it's a completely different character than the one you're watching. So you can never, I think, really fully get inside her head or on her side or like see her as a character, because the entire time you're thinking that's just Sandra Bullock bored in a sound booth.
Right. You know and I mean, earlier you mentioned Shrek. Like, Shrek has a lot of issues, obviously. This is not one of them. The actual animation and how it syncs up with the voices is part of what makes the animation actually compelling to watch.
Yeah.
I would argue that Shrek is actually very well cast in terms of its vocal performances, even though they are big names, behind it. I think Cameron Diaz does a wonderful job as Fiona, and
they get
John
big
Lithgow is
names.
the perfect Farquaad.
Yeah, they get big names who know how to do a cartoon. And like in the case of Eddie Murphy and John Lithgow, that's just how they perform anyway. They're both just big and they have a lot of tonality in their voice that they go up and down. And like, this is more like the kind of vocal work you get in like BoJack Horseman, where it's like, here's a celebrity kind of reading a line straight, which serves BoJack a little bit more because the animation is also pretty flat.
It's intentionally low key. Yeah.
It's more naturalistic. I think that's the wrong word, but it is. It's
so
not as frenetic.
here it's all playing against each other.
Right.
So they become Scarlet Overkill's minions, and they go to London because this movie is so busy. There's so much shit happening in this movie. We were in New York, and well, actually, we were like all over the world, but like New York, Orlando, and then London, which is where we'll spend the rest of the movie, except for the brief period of time where we cut away to the minions trying to get to London and go from Australia to India by erecting a giant ladder and then putting it over a cliff.
For some reason, like you have a single screen where they're jumping across or whatever. And Australia is in the daylight, and India, it's nighttime.
It's so fucking weird.
I don't know what the gag is.
You know how you could have done that gag? That would have worked. I can give you an example right off the top of my head. I literally just thought of this. You see them bouncing around in front of the Sydney Opera House. You see them jumping into the ocean. The very next thing you see is them coming out of the ocean, and then they're dancing past the Taj Mahal, right? That's the joke. If you want to do it that way.
Like if you want to do the night and day, the international dateline joke, that should be from like Alaska to Russia.
No, but so they're in Antarctica, I think, and they're going diagonally up through Australia and India to England.
How did they get to Antarctica? They were with Napoleon. Whatever. They're polar bears.
They were wandering in Russia, and they
you don't
ended
remember
up
Napoleon's
in
Antarctica expedition?
Yeah. his ice loo.
If anything, they would have been in the North Pole.
Because water freezes, so it is ice loo.
Whatever. Well, like Waterloo? Oh,
yeah.
That doesn't...
No.
Yeah, it does, because
No,
water
it doesn't.
freezes, Josh. So it's ice
Water
loo.
doesn't freeze. You are gaslighting me right now. Water evaporates and it turns back into liquid. It never freezes and it never fucking has.
Yeah, you don't know what ice... You don't know what ice is?
I know what
that
ice is. People
What
freeze
is it?
stuff.
Yeah, what is it then?
It's ice. It's frozen liquid, but it's not water because water can't freeze. It doesn't want to. It voted against it 30 years ago.
Once the minions move to across, they continue on their journey
England,
northwesterly toward England.
Yeah.
We learn that Scarlet's plot is to try to steal the Queen's crown. And then we get this title card. And this, I felt, is a great example of the type of joke in huge air quotes that this movie likes to make.
Josh did an air quote so big it was basically a J-O motion.
Yeah, and that was kind of what I was going for.
Oh, okay.
We get a shot of Tower Bridge, and it says Tower. Well, Tower Bridge, and then like the tower
The
behind
Tower
it,
of London. Yeah.
and then it says Tower of London, London. And I just about threw my entire TV out the window. Like,
I don't think that was a joke, but all right.
it is absolutely a joke.
How is
It's
it
an
not a
attempted
joke? I mean, it's got to be trying to be a joke if that's what they're putting on the sign, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I guess.
Because it didn't say Tower of London, like it was Tower of London, and then there was a pause, and then added London to the thing.
horrid.
Sure.
Horrid.
Not great. No,
So
not great.
Yeah, they go to the Tower of London. They steal the crown. It doesn't fucking matter.
Long
We
ass
haven't
chase
mentioned
sequence.
John Hamm in this movie. Remember John Hamm, who
Yeah.
plays Scarlet Overkill's not
British boyfriend
husband?
who doesn't have a British accent, and he's doing a weird thing.
I mean, I will give him this. He doesn't sound like John Hamm in this movie.
Yeah.
He's doing something a little
He
different.
sounds like John Hamm being goofy.
Yeah.
But it's like he's trying to do like a hippie thing. Like it feels like more like a hippie voice, but the character is modeled to look like a Beatle. Like
Right.
he's the most aggressively
he's like
British
supposed to
man
be
you've
like
ever seen.
Mod or something. Like
He looks actually more like a member of Pulp than a member of the Beatles.
It should be noted that what I think is a very sly and interesting joke in this is that Scarlet Overkill views the Queen of England as aspirational, like in terms of being a despicable.
You're reading too much into this. Come on.
No, she just wants the crown.
And all the minions are also attracted to the crown. Like they are attracted to Queen
but
Elizabeth.
They're attracted to it in a crime way, which is not the normal way, according to the world of this cartoon. The queen is the rightful holder of the crown, and pretending to a crown is villainy.
Right.
Right. It's she's Duncan and Scarlet is Macbeth.
That's right.
And John Hamm was from his mother's womb untimely ripped.
There's a funnier, better version of this movie that actually makes it about the crown in some meaningful way, but that's not this fucking movie.
Right.
No,
Again,
that's
if there's
called
like
Netflix's The Crown.
Yeah, well, it was. Now it's like pro-royalist, but I guess even like diseased British columnists are like, this is so mean to the crown now, and I'm like,
which is an insane thing to say.
It's sucking them off.
It's insane. You watch that thing, and it's the most like, oh God, we're like a ship. We're like an old British ship that must guide the nation to prosperity.
Rule
and I'm
Britannia,
like, what the fuck
things
is
of that
happening?
nature. Well,
Yeah,
AJ, I
awful.
can tell you what's happening, AJ. Britannia rules the waves.
So
That's
the
true. That is
minions
true.
end up
More and more
fighting,
people are saying this.
fighting
More.
like 6 beef eaters, one of whom is completely blind, and they get a hold of the crown.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And then they become the king of England.
Bob has a speech where he's like, King Bob, and they're like, and it's supposed to be funny, and it's not.
Yeah.
I have a fun story about that though.
Okay.
So there's
This better be fun.
Well, not for the people
You have
involved.
10 seconds.
So King Bob does that mic drop at the end, you know, where he blobs up. So in 2016, Google decided for their April Fool's Day joke to include a send button that would send all emails with a GIF of Bob doing that. And a lot of people accidentally sent those and got fired.
Why would they do that?
I have
That's
no
so
idea.
diseased.
It's so diseased, but yeah, no. So
I
Minions.
thought Google usually just stuck to like doing a funny encoding thing on YouTube during April
Or like,
Fool's Day.
or
That
like
is
you put a little
fucked
game
up.
on the homepage. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they had to like issue apologies.
Yeah,
and shit.
never push
Jesus
anything to
Christ.
prod that actually could impede the workflow of real regular users. Who the fuck is this? Elon Musk? Dear Lord.
Oh, he came.
We did the topical joke today.
I'm coming. So after they get the crown, they get thrown in the dungeon, right?
Yeah.
There's something very interesting about when you get actually like really good voice actors in this movie, because Jim Cummings voices one of the British guards in it. It's the point where they all do hair for some reason, where he uses the hypnosis hat to make
Right.
all of them just do a
Yeah.
song from Hair. But it's so telling that you can tell like when a veteran voice actor is actually playing a role in this thing, because the animation comes alive in such a beautiful
Yeah.
way that can only happen with like really people who really know what they're
Yeah.
doing in this shit. Yeah, but I mean, most of the time it's just Sandra Bullock throwing minions into a
Yeah.
dungeon, and
Yeah.
how will they get out?
I don't know. We'll find
how
out
will they get
after
out?
the break, I guess.
Yeah. let's
Whose
take a
minions
break.
are they? This week's episode is brought to you by Austrian physicist Dr. Christian Doppler. Now, the last time Dr. Doppler took out ad space on this podcast, he just sort of whizzed by us without advertising anything at all. But not to worry, listeners. This time, I've come up with a foolproof plan. See, I've heard that Dr. Doppler is something of an antiquary. That's someone who likes antiques. So I've set up my priceless collection of porcelain dolls on this table here in an eye-catching display that is sure to make him stop in his tracks. Yes, no matter how much of a hurry he's in, he will surely stop to admire my exquisitely crafted and ridiculously expensive set of porcelain dolls. Sure, the table that I've had to set it up on is a little wobbly. They sure don't make them like they used to. I'm something of an antiquary myself. But none of that will matter once Dr. Doppler lays his peepers on the collection of porcelain dolls I had to take out 3 extremely risky loans to afford. What's that sound? I think I hear him now. Yes, here he comes. Yes. Oh, I guess he didn't like them. Guess what?
What?
We have more minions to talk about, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
What's a minion?
So the minions get tortured a lot and they're super into it. This movie is horny. Can we talk
This
for a
is-
minute like how
No.
horny this movie is? It's pretty horny.
No, you're horny. No, this is the joke from Muppet Treasure Island when they put Gonzo on the rack. It's the same thing. It's not horny at all.
Are you telling me that Gonzo the Great isn't horny?
I'm telling you
Gonzo is
that
the
Tell
horniest
that
Muppet.
to the creators of the
Gonzo
ABC sitcom The Muppets, because they knew that he was having his way with those
Gonzo is the
chickens.
horniest Muppet.
Yes!
That's why it's so funny that he has his girlfriend who's a chicken, because he is quite literally keeping fucking that chicken. That's
Yeah.
funny. That's just funny.
Do you really think that Pierre Coffin has sex?
Yes.
All
the time.
My understanding is
Never.
that all French people are fucking constantly.
Yes, that is the understanding.
Not Pierre Coffin.
Oh,
It's
okay.
also
He
why
is not.
it's also why I think that for all the accusations that I was reading a little bit too much into the hating of Queen Elizabeth, I think this is a French-made movie.
Yes.
And who would hate the Brits as much as the French? I think it's a
Yeah, but they
valid
depicted
interpretation.
Napoleon as history's greatest monster. Come on.
No, they just depicted him. The history's
He was
greatest
the
monster.
villain of the 19th century.
There's a lot of French people who do think that Napoleon was a bad dude. That's neither here
That's
nor
not
there.
true. That's not true.
They want to
all
do
love
equal
Napoleon.
opportunity.
Every
They
single
love
one of them.
Napoleon. That's all they have.
Well, back to these horny minions. So if you Google, here's all I'll say is that there are a lot of people out there who also ascribe a lot of sexuality to
Yes,
these minions.
people imprint sexually on everything. That happened. It's called Rule 34.
I want to
But
hear
that
AJ
being said,
complete
I
his
thought
thought.
it was coming
I
from
do
nowhere.
not. I do not.
I thought it was coming
I
from
disavow
nowhere.
you both.
I thought it was coming from nowhere, and then I watched the movie, and I'm like, oh, they do some very adult jokes in this.
Well,
that
the
are
dungeon in particular is interesting,
Yes.
right? Because, they get thrown into this dungeon for stealing the crown and not giving it back to well, they do give it back, but Scarlett's like, you got to go to the dungeon anyway.
Yeah.
And then John Hamm shows up and is definitely pretty horny to do some torture things to them. I do think that's true.
He's super, super horny, and he keeps moving on to other machines.
Yep.
And then they just end up having a really fun day because the minions can't be tortured.
Right.
There's a harrowing scene where they try and hang the minions, but they just fall out of the noose.
and these,
Because
I
they
will
don't have
say,
necks. That's actually a gag.
It's
That is a real. That's like a.
but that's a dark gag
Yeah.
for a
Yeah,
kid's
no,
movie.
it's bleak. It's so bleak, and this was 2015.
I wonder if that one was written by the Dutchman. That man was not
It
happy.
might have been. It might have been.
That was not well.
That was one of the saddest men I've ever met, and I've met me.
All of those torture implements are so fucking realistic. They're rendered in photorealistic detail for some reason.
Yeah, it's
Well,
weird.
I think there are certain things that you can just get in cheap packages now, and one is really incredible lighting rigs in computer animation. So you'll see this really shitty, floaty, jagged animation, but the bloom is really nice,
I was so impressed with the lighting in this scene. Yeah.
Brian, I know that you said that it doesn't match a real Polaroid at all in terms of light reflection.
No,
but-
it's not. It's the fucking. They're basing it
It's
off
the
of
process,
a much later
right?
model.
Right.
I suppose it should be this is the beginning of the 70s.
It's actually 1968, but
Oh, right. No, Minions 2 is the 70s. No, this is 1968. You don't have the SX70 yet. You do not have the Polaroid that is fully automatic. You have a Polaroid where you pull the film out and then you peel it.
hello, everybody. Welcome to Brian's Camera Corner with me and you, and also Brian.
Holy shit! Josh Borman, the Lin-Manuel Miranda of the worst of all possible
More and more
worlds.
saying this. Just wait until you hear about my plans to privatize the coffee plantations in Puerto Rico.
Well, there goes getting Lin on the podcast.
That was not going to happen.
That was never gonna happen anyway.
What would we talk about? So, Lynn, your dad, you think he's real cool, huh? Yep, I think he's great. Okay.
Wow.
What else do you like? I like Tim Kaine. I'm Tim Kaine in the membrane.
Don't do this.
Okay.
Don't do this. Cut all
Rodgers
this.
and Hammerstein. Okay, we can agree on
can't
some of
do
those.
this.
What's your favorite Rodgers and Hammerstein? I really like Pipe Dream. Oh no, Lynn, come on.
That wasn't
Come
even close.
on.
That was.
How would Lynn say pipe dream?
All right.
How does anyone say? No one has ever said the words before. That's why the
pipe
musical
dream?
wasn't successful.
Do we want to retain this pipe dream content in the edit?
Yes.
Or?
Yeah. No, that musical is a fucking disgrace because
God.
you take
Yeah.
a story
Yes.
by John Steinbeck and you have it adapted by libs. What's going to happen? The same thing that happens when they adapt a communist play like Carousel. It's just going to become lib.
Brian, I've got one for you. Are the minions lib? Are the minions lib to you?
The minions.
Yeah, what are the
minions? The minions are they. Look, when you, if there's a, okay, so when a minion decides they don't vote. They don't vote. They're not participants in democracy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So
that would make sense. They want to serve under
They
autocrats.
don't use social media. The
Okay.
irony of it, they just live in a hole. That's their job.
Right.
They live in a hole. The thing is, Gru should have made them. That's what actually makes sense. Is like Gru invented
as
them
his
in
minions.
his lab.
Yeah.
Yes,
Right.
because he's nobody. He's
Or like
nothing.
Dr. Nefario, maybe, and then
Right.
like,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
sure.
I think that would be interesting.
If you want to remember the name of another character from the series, that's one that you can do.
Let's get out of the dungeon. The minions do that.
Well,
You know
let's
how-
get out of the coffin,
Okay.
if you will.
Okay. You know how the minions get out of a dungeon?
How do they get out
Very
of the dungeon?
carefully.
Well, they find their way out of a vent and they crawl through sewers, as you might do in an immersive sim such as Thief or Thief 2.
Yeah. The thing I always associate with Great Britain is its ventilation.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It was a trip this summer to realize that they don't actually have air conditioning in their theaters.
Yeah.
None of them.
Well, it's a goddamn nightmare is trying to take like the Northern Line or one of those like ones with the lower ceilings during the summertime because they can't fit air conditioning down there because of how small the tunnels
They can't
are.
put the units on the trains. I was just watching a YouTube video about that.
Jesus, I didn't know that.
It's death. It's
Like our
absolute
subways
death.
are pretty fucking bad when it gets hot, but
But at least you
at
hop
least
in the
you
car
on
and
the
it's cool.
train.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You don't get that in those like on the Northern Line.
Not always on the one train. Sometimes there's no air conditioning. But can we blame that on Robert Moses, Josh?
Yeah,
Is that
sure. Why not?
Okay.
Why not?
Cool.
Let's blame everything on. Let's blame this
Suck
movie on
my
Robert
dick,
Moses.
Bob.
Yeah, fuck him.
What do you think about Robert Moses, Lynn? Oh, I think he's great.
No, we
He's
can't.
a broker of power, just like my dad.
I'm quitting this podcast. So,
I like the power broker, but next time I'm putting women in the sequel.
God damn, that's funny. There's a joke that happens here that Josh got so angry about. He messaged the Slack immediately after it happened.
Yeah, because it's fucking stupid. And they're going through the sewers. They're trying to find their way back to wherever they're trying to find their way back to. And they try to go up and they like hit a manhole and they try to open up this manhole and go up and look through it. But then, oh no, the manhole gets pushed back down by guys walking across the street because it's Abbey Road. Get it? It's a visual reference to Abbey Road.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
So is one of are they wearing jeans? But one guy's wearing white, and maybe one of them is barefoot as a signal to tell us that Paul McCartney is actually dead
Yeah.
when they step on the
Something
manhole.
of
Wow.
that nature.
Wow, that joke. Kids are. Oh man.
Kids are going to love it.
Oh
They're gonna love
man.
That's something for the adults.
Oh man.
But like again, it's like this is the thing that this movie does here and there and everywhere. And I think this is, again, I don't know why this specific thing made me so mad. It's just that it's like emblematic of the approach that this movie and movies like it take toward quote unquote joke making, which is rather than actually create any sort of a thing that is grounded in the world or the characters or anything, you just make a visual gag and you're like, hey, remember that? Remember that thing? Remember that visual image? This is us doing that image again. Isn't it?
And
Now
I mean,
laugh,
Christ.
motherfucker, laugh.
Like this stuff, it goes even harder in the next Minions movie, which is all set during the 70s. It's just like a bunch of references to the fucking 70s?
Right.
Like to the Abbey Road cover. I also remember the Parent Trap remake. I was not aware of the Abbey Road cover at that point in my life, I guess, when I saw that movie. And there's a part where Natasha Richardson and Lindsay Lohan are crossing the street and it freeze frames them for a second and then it keeps going. I always thought that something was going wrong with the movie. And like no one told me, no one asked for my consent on that.
Well,
like they left me confused and scared.
They've done harm to you.
Yeah.
You should sue them.
They need to apologize. We need to
It
hold
was
them
weird that
accountable.
Lindsay Lohan was carrying a giant thing of chili at the time. I didn't quite put two and two together.
Do you think that the filmmakers in here actually trust their own narrative, their own work? Do they stand by what they've made here?
Because they can't trust their gibberish. They can't trust their visual storytelling. They always have to throw in English dialogue. They always have to give minions intelligible words. even when the intent really should be clear, it shouldn't actually be that difficult. And then they even throw in narration because they're fucking cowards.
I mean,
because Pierre Coffin has no idea how to make something good, and he never has to make something good. It doesn't matter
He just has to make
anymore.
something profitable, and at this point, the money printing machine is automated.
Everything is franchises. There's 4 franchises, and this happens to be one of the 4.
It's actually very funny because most of the intent of the Minions is clear even before, because what they'll do is they'll be like, "Ba-ba-da-ba-da," and then their like last little part will be the English word, like
Right.
Bob, or like whatever, or like Stuart. Like at the very end, but it's like their intent is already clear in the gibberish. Like they don't need to actually put that thing on top of it. You get it. Like you get most of the things in this movie. And then the coronation happens. Scarlet Overkill is almost crowned Queen of England for some reason because the Minions changed the laws in Parliament.
Yeah, there's something that's kind of on its way to being a good gag where they find the queen and she's just like in some working class bar,
She's
just
at a
like
pub,
shooting the shit with like big lugs, and it's like she's like trying to drink them under the table.
Well, yeah, she is doing so successfully, right? She is drinking from the largest mug.
And it's like arm wrestling several of the guys in there and beating them and just like being this badass. And then that never happens again.
It's almost funny. It's almost a joke.
It's really close to it, and it's kind of impressive that it doesn't land.
Right.
Yeah, because there isn't a third beat to it.
Especially because she's still like she has the sash and everything. She just doesn't have the crown
Like
anymore.
all of the pieces are there. It kind of reminded me of the Queen gag from Naked Gun.
Yeah.
Which is doing that thing effectively.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure what the difference is there, but there's something that is inherently funny, or can at least be inherently funny, about the Queen outside of Buckingham Palace doing non-Queen shit. So like the Queen spectating at a baseball game is just funny, as long as of course it's a goofy baseball game where Leslie Nielsen is calling strikes when it should be balls and vice versa.
I think the Queen should have been like exhilarated to have been liberated from her position. I think that's the actual joke. It's just like, I'm finally able to be myself,
right?
Which is this beer swilling, arm wrestling. But she wants the crown back. Like she wants to be queen again, which isn't funny. Really, because then it's confusing why she's all of a sudden able to do these things that you think she'd be able to do as the queen.
And if the queen is a real freak, that's funny, but like they're not willing to make that choice either, because this is an international franchise property, and they can't go over the line of how you're allowed to talk about a mum.
You
can't be mad about a mum.
Yeah, you can't. You feel the studio notes very, very explicitly in this section.
You can't have anyone be bad either. The whole point is like the inversion of the super. And I guess you're right. It is like the spy story, but that doesn't quite land the way that it should, where it's supposed to be James Bond. But like, it's supposed to be about being bad in the world where those rules are clearly defined. It doesn't actually necessarily mean you're some horrible monster or something like Adolf Hitler. It just means like you get to be, it's like Oscar the Grouch or the Grinch or anything else that starts with GR, right? They even went with Gru. Like, it's just, it's like, oh yeah, it's fun to be kind of nasty. But they can't be nasty. He has to become a good dad, or he has to become a loving husband who has actually turned against all the villains, or the minions themselves have to restore the crown.
Or like you could even play with that. You could play with the thing of like, they have to be mostly susceptible to larceny and things of that nature. There is no greater thief in the history of humankind than the British crown. You could make it, but they're not going to be like,
they can't do that. They can't have the axe to grind.
As much as a Frenchman would no doubt love to do that.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
A Frenchman. I don't know about Pierre Coffin.
Well, I don't know about him either.
Well, that's actually the thing. He's been dead for years. That's why
Let me tell you
they
about
tried to
who
tell
I
you.
love. I love Pierre Coffin.
Rhyme it right now.
I don't know how to rhyme. I'm not a writer like you.
Or Lin-Manuel Miranda, for that matter.
Give me a rhyme.
So the Underminer is here.
Yeah. All of a sudden, there's villain, because I guess she invited the villains to her wedding. That wasn't super clear.
Including
but then there's just
the
like
Underminer from
her
Pixar's The
coronation,
Incredibles. How does he even show up?
What's the name of the mime who does explosives? They also have him.
Yeah.
But he's a clown this time instead of a mime.
Yeah.
Because Pierre Coffin does not want to play into stereotypes about the French.
And that's important. Too much racism has been done against the French for too long, you know?
Yeah, and so they're basically on the run. Scarlet Overkill kidnaps both Stuart and Bob, and then Kevin has to kind of save the day. He gets enlarged.
Yeah, he gets very big.
He gets to be a very big minion.
He's much like Leon insofar as he's getting larger.
Yeah, the people of London... The people of London seem very unbothered by the fact that there's a minion kaiju just wandering through town.
And the thing is, Kevin can make a hat or a brooch or a pterodactyl. But then, there's a whole rocket that takes off. That's also Scarlet O'Danger's dress or whatever her fucking name is.
Scarlet O'Danger.
Scarlet O'Danger, right then.
Scarlet O'Fever.
Scarlet O'Danger. I don't even fucking remember her name anymore. But Scarlet O'Danger.
Scarlet Overkill.
It should have been Scarlet O'Danger.
Yeah,
yes, Scarlet O'Danger is much funnier. Yeah,
Rover Dangerfield has her rocket dress,
right?
And then Kevin saves the city from being exploded, and they recreate the Challenger explosion.
They absolutely 100% do.
They simply don't.
What do you mean
do.
they don't?
Yes, they simply don't. No, they don't.
Okay,
That's the way the rocket explodes.
Watch the end of Minions.
Yes.
Look at a picture of the explosion of the Challenger launcher.
No.
Like that.
I refuse to believe that was an intentional choice.
How is it not intentional?
I refuse to believe it's not an intentional choice. No,
it is the same thing.
It's 1968, first of all. So why would they be making a Challenger reference?
The movie wasn't made in 1968.
Yeah,
the movie was made 3 days ago.
To what end would they intentionally put the Challenger thing in there? No, I absolutely refuse to believe that's intentional.
They're fucking perverts.
Fucking freaks.
No, but you think that would get
frogs.
past? You think that would get past the fucking notes that were given?
They can't. No one actually cares about the Challenger explosion. I care. It's traumatic for me.
No, but look,
because
it's
I like
not.
space.
It's just not the Challenger
It's
explosion.
absolutely the Challenger explosion.
Totally
That's
is.
just what rockets explode. They can explode
you are
in a certain way.
suppressive person. This is thought termination.
That's right.
This is thought termination.
You are tearing down our organization.
I'm going to conduct
this is
an audit on you.
anti-solidarity.
We're designated as an SQ.
You are doing a no growth.
I am going to call Tom Cruise
Thank
in
you.
to denounce you.
Thank you.
Glad we did this. It's not. It's just not the Challenger
It
explosion.
is the Challenger explosion.
So sorry.
It has little dangly bits coming out of the explosion.
Yes, because when things explode, that's what happens.
Leave
It
a
is not what
comment,
happens.
listeners.
It's what happens when rockets explode when they're carrying the space shuttle up in 1986.
I have a prompt for you listeners. Leave a comment right down below on Patreon. Leave a comment if you're in our Patreon right down below letting us know if you think it was the Challenger explosion.
I want to be
because
clear.
it was.
Seeing the two pictures side to side, what I will say is that it does
the same
look
thing.
similar.
Yeah.
It's not the same.
It
They
is.
are
not the same.
drawing,
Because
they are drawing
there's no way.
inspiration.
No, there
from
is
the
no way
Challenger
that it's
explosion.
intentional. There's
Yeah.
no way that's intentional.
Show
this
me
is
another
reading
explosion.
way too into it.
Show
No.
me any other explosion that looks like the Minions explosion, and I will maybe allow you back into my home someday.
Here's the thing,
you know
AJ.
what? Here's the thing. Here's the
Here's the thing.
Good band. Good band.
Both of you have the thing.
The thing is that facts don't care about your feelings.
That's right. That's
and
right.
the fact is that the
You
Minions...
have no facts. You have no facts.
And the fact
to
is
back
that the
this up.
Minions did
Not
the
a
Challenger
single
explosion.
fact.
So the O-rings made on the Challenger rockets, the ones that called into question because it was an unusually cold day, the day that they launched, those were made by the polygamist cult in southern Utah and northern Arizona.
That's
the
true.
FLDS, Warren Jeffs, they make the O-rings for
hell
NASA.
yeah, dude.
Not even joking.
Jesus.
So-
So Kevin sacrifices himself for all of the minions.
Yeah, for all of the FLDS. Oh yeah, and the other minions have shown up now. It's like Bernard and Bianca and the Rescuers Down Under. They don't actually do anything.
Right.
But that movie's still enjoyable either way.
Also, you know what else it is? Again, just to the point of how this movie rips off so many things from so many other better animated movies. It's also the end of the Iron Giant.
It's exactly that, except they don't have the courage to kill him.
Neither did the Iron Giant.
Iron Giant, it's a little bit ambiguous, but
No, it's not. He's going to get back together.
Really. No, he's
Oh, sure.
back.
Okay.
Yeah, come
Great.
on. He's like Broadway in that
He's
regard.
But
Yeah.
at least Iron Giant lets you sit in that for a very long
Sure.
time
Yes.
and
Yes.
ends
Sure.
the movie, and then has that as a post extra
this
thing.
movie is weird where it decides that it wants to be sad for a second,
Yeah,
and then it's making a
literally
riff on
maybe
it a
20
second later.
seconds or so.
Yeah.
It's really short amount of time. I think they could have stewed in it a little longer.
Yeah, so the Challenger explosion has happened,
Yes.
and no one has died in this one. Much like the real Challenger explosion, they all died when they hit the water.
Well, didn't fucking what's her name die?
No, she's not dead.
Oh, she's
Doesn't
not
she
dead?
fall to the ground?
Yeah, I know. Scarlet Overkill.
Yeah, 'cause then she gets-
and
that's
John
right,
Hamm
freeze
survive.
raid
Yeah,
at the end.
that's right. They get freeze raid.
Oh my
Because
God.
nothing matters. Nothing ever
Nothing
does
matters.
anything.
There's
is no
no
weight.
stakes.
There is no impact. There are no physics in this
No.
world.
Yeah, all the minions get like thanked by the Queen of England. They all, the three main minions get like gifts. Stuart gets an electric ukulele that's just a guitar, and then he shreds on it for a while, and
that's a joke.
They make
and then
a
he
joke
breaks the
about,
guitar, and then he
like,
gets a snow globe.
Yeah, he gets a snow globe, and they're like, ha ha ha, that's a bad gift. I'm like, the minions are simpletons. They would love the snow globe. Why
Yeah.
would they have a
Particularly
problem
Bob
getting
would
the
love the
snow
snow
globe?
globe.
Right. It's imbecilic. Nothing ever means anything. It's like when they run into the family when they're hitchhiking. They're like, oh wow, it's a family with kids. Maybe I don't want to go hit in their car. And it's like, yes, you would. Yes, you would. You're minions.
The minions love kids. I mean,
Yeah,
Bob has a
what
full
the
full
fuck?
conversation with a toddler.
They can't keep anything consistent whatsoever. And it's not even over yet.
No, it's not. That's the thing that pisses me off the most.
They won't let me die.
Oh God.
Scarlet Overkill and John Hamm's character steal the crown again, but they're freeze raid because, oops, surprise, Gru's here.
Remember him? Remember Despicable that guy?
Yeah, except they've just pitched up Steve Carell's voice, so he's like a child in this
Yeah,
version.
like Fred, like the Fred YouTube guy.
And
Yep,
so
and-
that's it. Like the minions are like, wow, he sure is a guy. And then
They're
that's
like,
Yeah,
New
and
boss,
then Gru,
new boss, new
Gru,
boss.
who is established in the first movie as not being that important, actually does steal the crown jewels.
Yeah, and he's like a god king,
And
like
then,
a god
and then at
king
the
child.
end, at the end, we get the fucking narrator from the top of the movie who we've forgotten about. He's been there like just not in here at all for the past like 80 or so minutes, and all of a sudden, no, he's back. He's pulling it together for us. Like what the fuck, dude?
It's actually, this is a reference to Network. It's just that Pierre Coffin is a big fan of Network.
Yes, correct. Yeah. What is Minions but the network of children's entertainment?
This movie sucks ass. I fucking hated it, and like that goes without saying, right?
I think it's good.
Good. I don't think any of
it's
us
fine.
were expect. Yeah, I know AJ. But what I'm wondering about this more broadly is like, to me, Minions is a great example of the current state of children's entertainment, right? It is always tied into a broader marketing push, which will generally have, all form of multimedia tie-in. We're talking, singles. We're talking merch. We're talking everything else.
Constant flow of content that is just going out, no matter what it's about. There is no like linguistic quality to it to make it as international as possible. Right. Ask any parent about Coco Melon. They will know exactly what you're talking about there, because those fucking videos are incoherent, and yet they have this massive multi-million-dollar Netflix contract to keep putting out just complete and total nonsense all day long for your children.
Yeah, I mean, I watched this on Peacock, and if you pause the movie on Peacock, it has a little screen that appears with the minions that says, don't pause too long or we'll take over your screen.
What the
which is
fuck?
terrifying.
That's horrible.
But
What
also,
the fuck?
all the ads that play on Peacock when you watch this are for this show called Caillou, and this bald little fuck.
Oh, I fucking hate
Caillou's been
Caillou.
around for a long time.
Fucking
Parents
kid.
hate Caillou.
Caillou is
rightfully
Caillou is,
so.
I mean, like, I would say in terms of like war crimes that Canada needs to be held accountable for, Caillou is probably number one.
Oh, is he Quebecois?
I don't know if it's Quebecois or if he's fucking whatever else, but he's definitely Canadian.
He's got some horrible frog name, but like parents hate Caillou so much. I thought he was Belgian or something, because they love doing crimes. And like the thing is, like, he makes kids worse. That's the thing I always hear, is that Caillou makes children like whinier and more unpleasant.
Yeah, because he's a whiny
because
little
he is
bitch.
a bad behavior. Yeah. And these minions are poorly behaved. These I mean, like, kids can watch cartoons, like fucking whatever. Like, but like this doesn't even hold a candle to a Warner Brothers cartoon. Just turn those on for your kids.
So what's interesting to me about the Minions is that it's a complete ripoff of an entirely different French property called the Rabbids, which was originally started off as a spin-off of Rayman.
Rayman, yeah. The Rabbids were invented for the Wii, because the Wii was like, let's make a bunch of mini games for every franchise. And so the first Rayman game to come out in that generation was Rayman Raving Rabbids.
Yeah, where there's just like these psychotic little gremlin
Oh yeah, they're horrible.
rabbits.
They're actually bad dudes who cause trouble.
I have heard that the there's like the Rabbids Kingdom Battle or whatever,
that's
where they
the
fight
thing.
the Mario guys, and it's
Is
like an XCOM like.
The Rabbids are good actually. The
Yeah,
Kingdom
now,
Battle games
yeah.
are very, very well done games.
They're very fun, and they know how to utilize the rabbits. Like
They don't
a lot
overstay their
better.
welcome. Yeah, like
But what the minions do is the design, I think, is friendlier than the rabbits, because the rabbits, there's something kind of creepy about them.
Which is by
Yeah,
design.
yeah.
That's very much intentional, yeah.
Yeah, the rabbits have like 5 o'clock shadow around their mouths mostly, and they kind of just look like dangerous little creepy things. The minions are bright pastel colors. It's yellow and blues coming at you.
overalls, very non-threatening clothing.
Just like very visually, you look at those and you're like, oh yeah, I could see why kids would like fucking lose their mind at these
The
things.
French of all stripes have a long and complicated history with animation, right? Sometimes you get stuff like Ernest and Celestine, or The Illusionist, or Triplets of Belleville.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get the Donkey Kong TV show.
That was French?
That was French.
I would just like to take a moment to sing.
Yeah.
I'll shower you with coconut cream pies.
Yeah, that's my
Our
jam.
love is stronger than a golden banana.
Yes. That's my fucking jam. Really a great episode for Josh singing, I think. This is
Yeah.
This is some new heights.
I just had to find it. I like the thing is, like, evangelicals love the Minions. As we found, the Minions are servants of the Lord. They are His creation. They are beautifully and wonderfully made.
It's them and also Sonic the Hedgehog. Don't forget.
So many drawings of both Sonic and the Minions being crucified.
Yeah.
All over the internet.
And those are mostly ironic, but occasionally not, which is always
I need
interesting.
an evangelical remembrance of 9/11 with the Minions. I know it's out there. So anyone, please send that to me. So I found a mommy blog, a lady named Angie Tolpin, Leaving a Legacy. And it starts here. Why we don't recommend the Minions movie, a Christian perspective.
Oh my God. Okay.
Disclaimer. Movies land in one of those, quote, disputable issues, end quote, categories. I don't know what this means. My intention in writing this post is not to create controversy, nor is it to condemn anyone for taking their children to this movie. Simply put,
Kind of seems like that's the
I have
intention.
felt a burden on my heart to write this post since we took our son to watch it. I'm going to get more Southern as I read down into this.
Burden on your heart.
The Lord put this on my heart.
Chicken.
I posted a few pictures of us going to see the movie on social media in celebration of his birthday, and immediately
In celebration
upon,
of whose birthday? Jesus's?
her child. Yeah, she just starts with his. But
I thought it was for Christmas. Okay.
and immediately upon leaving the theater, I was compelled to delete those posts on Facebook because I don't want to condone going to watch it or giving them free publicity.
Whoa.
I have received a few messages asking what we thought of the movie and feel the need to explain our position. I hope that our brothers and sisters in Christ can have an open dialogue challenging one another as iron sharpens iron on many topics without judging or condemning one another.
Wait, iron is going to sharpen iron about the Minions? Like this is a dialectic that we have to engage in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Parent foul. We made a parent foul.
Oh.
Well,
oh no.
You hate to see it.
In our opinion, it was a parenting foul. Our family has a special birthday tradition where mom and dad take the birthday kid on a special date. That's called celebrating your kid's birthday. It's
what?
not like a...
No,
my
that's-
family does this
that's
weird
unique to
little
them.
thing. A few weeks ago, one of our children turned 7. He loves movies and wanted to watch the new Minion movie that was released the day after his birthday. That's where my parenting foul came in. I didn't do my research.
Well,
In
so
fact...
this is interesting. The point about research is if she had done her research on the standard sort of evangelical channels...
She could have gone to Plugged In.
Well, but if she had gone to Plugged In, there wouldn't have been anything particularly objectionable here. Like the Plugged In review concludes by saying... The Minions are the kind of adorable dweebs who belly laugh over a good banana peel pratfall, snicker over someone being thwacked in the backside, and pucker up for a childlike goodnight kiss before night-night. The only problem with this film's kid-focused formula is that it sometimes features a few more bare yellow backsides, goofy sensual wink winks, and try that on your brother head boinks, then mom and dad might be completely comfortable with. But that's a very mild critique.
Yeah.
And Plugged In, that's focused on the family. Like if they find anything even remotely objectionable, they'll fucking go hard.
Yeah. I should establish, like, this woman is a freak. She
Yes.
is unusual. Again, people who love the Lord tend to love the Minions, as do we all.
Yeah, as do we all. And also with you.
So say we all.
In fact, we allowed little buddy to get so excited about. I love the way that like internet mommy bloggers have like special names for all of their kids and shit. It's so deranged because everyone has to build a brand.
Right.
We allowed little buddy to get so excited about his Minion movie that we even let his brothers and sisters pick out some birthday gifts with the Minion theme. And his older sister made him a Minion birthday cake. The whole theme of his birthday gifts was Minion. In my defense, we were packing to move our family of 8. I was trying to plan next year's curriculum for school. My first online Bible study had just launched.
Wait, so she homeschools too?
She homeschools. She writes curricula.
Let's fucking go.
And she even writes like a Sunday school curricula for like women's study groups and stuff.
You know she's showing up at those fucking school board meetings to talk about how the transes are menacing her children.
Oh, boy, you know it. Yeah, all her children who are not enrolled. Yes. My husband was working crazy hours like usual. Life of an entrepreneur who is running fast growing startup.
That fucking guy wants to be on Shark Tank.
He's just lost a lot of money to crypto between the time that review was posted and now.
Why I cannot recommend the Minion movie. 1, desensitization. As parents, we need to be careful of the culture's ability to desensitize us from discerning between good and evil, right and wrong, edifying and destructive. 5 years ago, I made a similar mistake. I took my 5-year-old daughter to see Princess and the Frog by Disney. You would think I would have learned my lesson, right? But this movie came recommended by friends I thought were like-minded, and I took her to see it without doing a ton of research. I had watched the trailer, but it had all the sweet, innocent clips in it. Not the ones that expose the stronghold of voodoo being the main theme in the movie.
Of course.
Within the first 5 minutes, I quickly rushed my spiritually sensitive, pure, crying, fearful 5-year-old daughter out of the movie. Yeah, The Princess and the Frog was a big mistake.
Right.
Her daughter was scared and crying, which I don't remember that movie having any sort of scary elements.
I don't know, if you're 5, it might be a
Friends
bit
on the other
much.
side is a little scary, but it's
but
like
it's also not
fun.
in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's like a fun like Disney scary.
Yeah.
You know.
So
As
she
opposed to
quotes,
Hunchback of Notre Dame, which is a bit more than
Hellfire! Hellfire!
which I loved as a kid.
The only problem with
fucking
Hunchback is
rules.
those fucking gargoyles.
Yeah, she quotes the Armor of God verse. She says, "Our culture impresses upon us the idea that kids need to be tough, grow up, be able to handle certain shows." Growing up too fast, remember that? I feel the pressure as a parent to allow some of my children to watch movies I never would allow, or at least until they were way older. You and I both know that we could sit and point out distinct agendas that are taught in certain movies, whether it be a feminist agenda,
right?
You create your own destiny agenda,
absolutely,
or simply trying to make evil look funny and cute.
Right.
In the Minion movie, I see a spiritual battle. I see the enemy creatively disguising evil for cute and making it palatable for the next generation to not only accept, but like.
Okay.
I believe that from a biblical perspective, evil is never cute and we shouldn't laugh at it.
Got it. Okay. So her arg here is that because Despicable Me is something that plays around in sort of a silly way with these villains, it sort of blinds you to being able to see the true evil and sin that exist in this world. And it's basically like the first stepstone onto the way of turning your children gay, essentially.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
When I shared with women that my children hadn't watched certain movies like Snow White or Princess and the Frog just because they were too scary, I felt judged. Listen, friends, I want my children to recognize that when something is scary,
Feels like a you problem. Not a
or when they have a bad feeling, they follow that gut instinct and turn from it. This is spiritual discernment. And I personally believe that what we watch and listen to has the power to desensitize us from listening to that spirit within us that is there to warn us. This starts with modeling it for our children. I always wonder with people like this. This woman is like our age, around that, right? Did she watch Snow White as a kid? Did she watch any of these movies when she was a kid? Like, why does she not have that perspective of like as a child who watched movies? What were the movies that traumatized her? That does not come up.
right.
This is like the totally foreign realm of this newfangled thing known as the cinema. So then she goes to 2, the theme. The definition of minion is someone who is not powerful or important and who obeys the order of a powerful leader or boss. Synonyms include, she just gets the dictionary definition.
Webster's dictionary
Henchman,
defines.
follower, servant, stooge, toady, and a hanger-on. Minions are
Hanger-on.
typically associated with evil villains in movies and books.
yeah.
The theme throughout this movie is the pursuit of following an evil boss. Now, I have to say, we have watched and actually owned Despicable Me, the movie.
Hell yes.
I was very hesitant at first, wary of the message being portrayed, but we found it to be a great avenue for discussion about good and evil.
Wait, then why the fuck was Minions over the line? What?
And in the first movie, the so-called
She
villain
loves the queen.
changes.
Huge
His
monarchist.
heart changes and he begins fighting for good.
I
Plus,
see.
those little yellow minions were so stinking cute.
There it is. There it is.
I am not going to lie. I have had many belly laughs while watching those little yellow faces make their silly noises.
That is actually very interesting though, because it's not just the kids that are attracted to these minions. It's the parents of
yes.
kids.
Primarily the parents, I think.
That's also
And grandparents.
That's why I think like the gags in the movie that are so specifically targeted toward adults, like I suppose if you already find the Minions in and of themselves to just be absolutely irresistibly cute and just so much fun, that putting them into these visual pictures of things you will also remember would be in and of itself inherently fun, because here's these little guys who you think are fun in an image that you remember. Isn't that even more fun? It's not, but like
and
to them it
hearing
is.
people, what she describes is she's hearing people laugh as the minions keep killing their bosses, which like should turn around and be a good thing. And it's always an accident. The minions don't kill anyone on purpose. They make silly mistakes, like being like, "Happy birthday, Dracula. Let's open the curtains."
Right. And they're not like happy about killing their bosses. They're not like,
She becomes horrified by hearing this laughter in the theater. She says, "It's not funny. We didn't find the movie funny." Well, you and me both, sister. And she's now so upset that she spent any money on the minions whatsoever or allowed them to interfere in her home life at all. She has this picture of the birthday cake, this very modest, like very well done because it was made by one of her kids, Minion birthday cake, but it's like it's shared as like a cautionary tale of making something like this. And I mean, there's something to that, right? Because it's like your kids are being just sucked up by brands, just like we were. That's not new.
Yeah, it's so like this is the thing too that fascinates me about, I guess, the conservative, reactionary, evangelical, oftentimes mind, is that I do think that oftentimes there is an impulse there that they are able to identify, right? That there's this feeling of something about this is off. Something about this is wrong. I can even understand how for her, Despicable Me, the original movie, which I haven't seen it, I'm not going to, but it's my understanding that it does have a little bit more of a story to it. It's more of like an actual movie.
Yeah, it's just sort of a guy takes in some kids and he learns how to be a good dad.
Sure.
Pretty typical kind of movie.
It becomes a movie like 30 or 40 minutes in. It's really scattershot up until that point.
But like I think that the point there about like that there's an actual narrative there, that it is the standard, like ultimately, you know, having a family is a good and important thing. That is doing something, that is saying something that is in its way meaningful. Whereas the thing that struck me so much about Minions is that there is nothing of meaning here. It is completely empty and devoid of meaning. It is 100% a franchising exercise. It is a way to kill time. And for whatever reason, I'm assuming she felt that impulse of what that thing is, couldn't describe it, and so went to the place of, well, it's just dark-sided.
The devil's made his way in. And it's like, your child like has all these things that they're going to imprint on, things that they're fascinated by, things that they love. Yeah. And it's all commercially owned shit that you don't have any control over, and could easily just turn into something completely different than what you initially thought it to be. And what are you supposed to, like, how does your child react to that? What does it mean? Like, you have to tell your kid, oh no, this is the bad movie, we're not going to go see that, and then they're going to scream and cry.
Right.
Yeah. Or you just take them to see the movie and then you talk to them about it afterwards if you're really so fucking concerned. But, like she said, the first movie is such a good conversation starter.
But I'm sure that what this meant is like this kid, they saw this movie, the kid was having fun, they went home and mom was like, okay, we're going to take all of your Minion stuff, all of your new birthday presents, your cake, your toys that you've had for years, and we have to give them a Goodwill. Right? That this shit has to go away. We have to take it away from you. That's a very real thing.
Because here's the thing. We grew up with shit entertainment too. right?
Yeah,
There are movies.
we grew up in the wake of Reagan, like deregulating broadcasts and everything, so that TV shows could just be commercials for plastic toys.
Right.
I'm nostalgic for a lot of things that I can rewatch and say this is probably bad, but it will always hold that sort of special place in my heart.
Yeah.
Kids are gonna like what they like, and it's really your job just to encourage that. And then if they stop liking it, just be like, okay, well, what's the new thing?
Sure,
You know,
but that's easy to say, but it's a lot harder to do because the nature of where the industry
Because what if your kid
is,
likes Caillou?
Well, yeah. But also the nature of the
well,
industry
I'm not
with
take
where
all my
it
kids'
is right
Caillou
now.
toys away. That's the sacrifice you fucking make. Anyway, John.
Well, no, because if you try to take the Caillou toys away, they're going to whine like a
They're gonna
motherfucker.
scream and cry.
I'm sorry, I need to clarify. My partner just whispered, I will take away the Caillou toys.
No, but I think that there's something there too about like it's very easy to say, well, just find something different. Be like discern differently, right? It's not that
Well,
fucking
that's-
easy because
but
the
that's not what I
companies
mean.
that have that exert the ironclad control over what is made, what is disseminated, and what is put out, that is more or less absolute control. It is very rare that you get a actual brand new property that rises up in the ranks unless it's able to be something easily franchisable and merchandisable like this stuff is.
And this
so,
is why it's so interesting that like it's easy to weaponize into like new culture war stuff. And it's like, well, now this brand is woke.
Yes.
This brand is based.
Yes.
This brand is godly. This brand is grooming, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, because it's like it's been decayed by one installment, one thing. And the only thing that matters is that you find the proper loyalty to the proper brands.
Yes.
For the rest of your life.
in the point of something like Minions, it's something that is so intentionally vague that it is essentially tabula rasa. You can project onto it whatever the fuck you want. But then also, what are the properties that are available to them as they grow older? It's a lot of the same, like it's just kind of the same shit.
It becomes the nostalgia, right?
And then
they're
your
gonna
child,
have like an adult
then your
theme
child
song.
becomes a Harry Potter adult.
God, wait until
Like-
the fucking gritty Minions reboot we're going to be getting in 20 years.
That's the
Can you
thing is that
fucking imagine?
there's gonna be like a mini series called Gru,
Right.
Which casts some guy to like play like the middle years where he like has to murder.
Yeah, it's
Oh my
gonna be
God.
like
Good League or
50-year-old
whatever.
Timothy Chalamet or something, and
Yeah,
like
in a huge prosthetic nose. It's gonna be horrible. It's gonna be the worst thing you've ever
Oh
seen.
my God, I'm just thinking about how funny it's going to be once Timothy Chalamet becomes busted. Like,
But that's the other thing is that our generation has already started doing this. Like we're
Yeah.
already
Yeah.
seeing the gritty
Yeah.
reboots of the stuff from our childhood.
yeah.
And
a lot of people thought Detective Pikachu was a good movie.
yeah.
I think it's pretty good.
Oh my God.
God damn it!
Sorry, I'm sorry. It's a fun adventure. I don't know. It's fun.
You have not turned fancy yet. We're still working on it.
Yeah, no. I don't think. Look, I think if you're introducing kids to like a murder mystery, I think it's fun. I think
Knives
it's a
Out.
fun time.
Knives Out.
Yeah. Let's have the
Like-
kids sit down and watch Ryan Johnson's
Look,
Knives
kids,
Out.
Stephen Sondheim and Anthony Perkins wrote this movie in 1972, and it was a scathing satire of
Anthony
Hollywood
Perkins?
culture. No, my kids would know who Anthony Perkins was
That's
already.
true. That's true.
Just like how I knew who Roddy McDowell was when I was like 2. I want to just put the stray final points that she
Yeah,
puts. She's
please.
like, there are other objectionable things.
What else, Brian?
Special thanks to commenters for your additional thoughts on this. I had to
so
add
she
them in
added
here.
to it.
So there were specifics for parents to evaluate on. Thank you for sharing all your thoughts. We are a team here. The beginning pushes an evolution agenda. That always frustrates
Oh
me.
yeah, right,
Oh, yeah.
right.
There is adult humor inappropriate for young children, including minions mooning the viewers.
True.
Yeah.
There are male minions dressing up as women, which we are seeing in many shows these days, in which we all know what agenda is being pushed
Tell you,
here.
it's the fucking trans agenda. It's the homosexual agenda.
They portray the queen in bad character.
Oh, there it is. I knew she was a monarchist. I fucking knew it.
And in she doesn't even do parentheses. She does the fancy brackets. She does the like musical brackets. Like when you take the square brackets and press
Right.
shift
Yeah,
and
yeah,
use
yeah,
those.
I know what
Those
you're
are the
talking
ones
about.
that she's using for parentheses.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, like
So
it's
in addition
she's
to
marking
queen,
up CSS in this
yeah.
movie.
Yes.
So this is the queen's bad character is with a beer, as one commenter pointed out.
Oh, sure. Queen never drank, notoriously.
no, the queen, not a drinker. She's a Christian. The mega villain Scarlet Overkill is a seductress as well as being pure evil.
Not Not really.
No?
Not at all. She's married.
And the last point is there are no consequences for stealing played out by the movie by any authorities. What does this teach children? To recap, the entire theme of the movie is the pursuit of evil and finding an evil boss to follow.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh boy. So I just want to talk about what it means going forward from here, because we already sort of alluded to, like, there's going to be the gritty reboot of Gru at some point in the future. But when the movie Minions came out, a lot of Zoomers went to go see it in full suits. Like, all the boys turned out that weekend to go see Minions. Like, it was a huge thing on TikTok, and I know that a lot of people may have been doing it ironically, but the thing about liking something ironically is that over time it can transform into something very much else.
Well, also, I mean, I know both of you have heard me say this many times. You can't spend money ironically. Like,
sure.
Once you do, it's out of your pocket and it's into the pocket of the company that created the thing.
Like everyone who is doing their little like parody account $8 things on Twitter last week.
The only question is, was it worth the joke or not? In some cases, it was.
Yeah, I mean, in some cases, we had stocks just plummet into the goddamn earth.
But I would not personally ever spend money and give it to someone that I hate in order to spite them. Right. Because they still have my money then.
Yes.
Like, it doesn't matter if that's not enough money for them. It is money of mine that I have gotten rid of.
Yeah, and so I think that this is sort of like, it's going to be like kind of like a Shrek thing.
Yeah, Shrek was like a meme. Like, Shrek has become this like bizarre fucking thing that has its own subculture attached to it because of like 4chan.
Right, and Despicable Me is kind of the same way.
And then later because of Twitter and Despicable Me has like the normie subculture stuff, the weird Facebook memes that are shared by grandmothers all over the globe. So then you had like, Minions, where young teenagers are wearing suits to go see this completely shitty movie.
Well, I think what this whole thing comes down to is that, going back to the thing of like the things that imprint on you early on.
Yeah.
I think in our generation, Shrek was that movie. Whether at the time you liked it, you didn't like it, you thought it was sort of okay, it was something that you couldn't escape, in no small part due to how well DreamWorks was able to license and merchandise the film, right?
Yeah, and how well it played into like just general trends in pop culture at the time.
Yes.
It was a fractured fairy tale. We had all grown up reading The Stinky Cheese Man. You know, used the music of the time. It used Eddie Murphy. Everyone loved Eddie Murphy and Mike Myers and Cameron Diaz and everything like that. So like it was like a movie that I think younger people saw, and it made them feel a little bit more adult. It made them grow up too fast is what it did.
Yeah, truthfully. Yeah. All of a sudden they're Googling Michael Eisner.
In the sense that like Shrek was, I agree, very much of its time. Like, it encapsulated what was happening in 2001 in the culture in terms of the overall vibe. What can Minions tell us, if anything, about where things are at in, I guess, 2015 when this comes out, but also through to now? Like, how does it reflect the culture?
It's like the culture here is also a lot of referential callback humor, but it's not that contemporary. There's some contemporary like but there's the thing we didn't mention is like there's so many music cues. There's so many songs that show up throughout all this.
The soundtrack slaps, actually.
They're weird. Okay. They're weird references that come from all over the place, and they're often very, very old.
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially Minions 2, because it's just jokes about like disco and
it feels at a disjunct from itself almost.
And so it feels like a lot of the musical references, they don't even want people to recognize them.
No, they just want people to be like, that's a song I remember.
I don't even think that that's always the case either.
No?
Like, they want kids to laugh at the Beefeaters singing gibberish and dancing to a song from Hair.
Yeah.
Like, you know what it reminds me of? It's Christmas. It's how we're still being held hostage by a boomer's idea of what Christmas is. It's like boomers trying to recreate the Christmases of their childhood, and we've just been doing that over and over and over and over
it's
again.
All songs from like Irving Berlin and Bing Crosby and
because
Frank
we're
Lesser.
trapped in that world, and watching something like Minions, it seems like it's the exact same thing all over again, except instead of boomers, it's just Gen X. It feels like it's 2 generations removed from its current target audience. It's basically training kids to like the pop culture of their grandparents.
Yeah. None of the stuff in here, none of the stuff in this movie is like actually germane to the experience of any kid born since fucking like 1962. You know, like
Yeah,
the thing takes place in 68 technically.
One of
but
the
like,
more like theoretically contemporary jokes is that like, whatever, like Despicable Me 2 ends with a wedding and the Minions come out and sing I Swear, but they're dressed like Backstreet Boys.
and that's a decade later.
And all of that is still like 20
all
years
that is
ago.
ancient history to children now. Yeah, that's so weird.
But it almost feels like, hey, the things we liked were cool, right? The kids will love the things that we liked, right? We're still cool.
Kids will love
We're
the
so
fucking
cool.
easy listening song that got top play on Delilah in 1996.
I'm not chuggy. I'm hip with the culture.
But
Like,
yeah, like in terms of what it's saying, like it's not saying anything. It's nothing says anything anymore. Like if you look at there's a Twitter account that I follow that's just called Fleets. Or Fleets
Oh,
Good,
God,
and it was around when Fleets were a thing, but it focuses mostly on just like what are the top hits on like Facebook. We just made a Facebook page for the Worst of All Possible Worlds, and what the algorithm fed to that is like, oh, this is a new thing that doesn't follow anything, doesn't have any sort of footprint, is the most bizarre shit in the world.
Right.
Like if you install a new browser and then just fire up YouTube and see what the top thing is, it's grotesque. It's strange. it's
wild.
Disgusting.
Yeah.
Like the top video that has been that will pop up lately is just like a picture of a cat, and it's just like funny cat videos, right? The title is the whole thing, but the thumbnail for it is a cat where they've photoshopped like panties onto it and made the eyes really big. Like I remember trying to find something on YouTube for a clip when Stephen Sondheim died, and it was like 3 or 4 days after he had passed, and I found this YouTube video that was automatically generated, already had 3.8 thousand views, which is like almost the most views we've gotten on a single video. And it just says, I'm looking at it right now because I saved it. Stephen Sondheim, quote, theater last video will touch your heart. Crying emoji from something called Digital Media.
Oh, Jesus
then
Christ.
it just has like the beginning of his Wikipedia page as the description, and the thumbnail is a stock photo of a coffin at a cemetery somewhere with roses on top of it, and a picture of Stephen Sondheim with big gooey tears
Hell yeah.
photoshopped on his eyes.
Hell yeah.
And that's what mainstream entertainment actually is at the end of the day, is like Facebook videos of people being like, her husband's a soldier. Will she cheat on him?
Right.
And then she just like takes her panties off from under her dress and like then takes her shoes off so you can see her feet. And then that's the whole video. I'm not even joking.
I know
right?
you're not.
It's the people who are just like putting random food objects on a counter and making the soy face the whole time so that people are like, why are they doing that? That's not how you make a hamburger.
And maybe
I must investigate.
and maybe
I
that's
must click.
some of the fear too. Is the fear of this weird, like algorithmically generated, like there's no humanity in it. There's no actual artistic point. It's just like, what can generate the most interest based on user behavior? Like, does clicking
And many
the
of
thing,
the users are themselves artificial.
right? So does clicking the thing serve the ad? For bots, probably, because they're trained to follow specific pattern behavior. I mean, it's exactly the opposite too of what I think entertainment ought to be, and specifically what I think children's entertainment ought to be.
We're going to get to a point where AI are writing these movies.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the thing that
there won't be just sad Dutchmen who aren't getting laid anymore.
yeah. Well, no, exactly. The thing about that I do, if there's anything to appreciate about Minions, it is those moments where the sad Dutchman comes through, where there are still brief moments and glimmers of like humanity in this product that is so clearly made to be a product and not a piece of art.
It's buffed to an absolute sheen.
And it looks at Illumination animation, looks plastic and shiny. And it's so appealing to like kids because it's like, oh, it's so bright. Like it's just saccharine bright. It's
It's like buffed down so much that they've actually like pulled all the paint off too.
Yeah.
I watched it on my TV and I had HDR on, and the way they've mastered this shit for HDR, it's wild. It just like, it's too much. It's too much. The colors are too bright. It's the opposite of Thief 2. But
so many things we've called the opposite of Thief 2. I'm gonna make a list at some point.
When I was actually scrolling through TikTok yesterday, I came across an interview with Guillermo del Toro, who is for me personally, a filmmaker who I think is able to tap into still a sense of like what childlike wonder actually feels like.
Yeah, and terror.
Yeah, both sides, which
Well,
are
and he understands that they're kind of related to each other.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
They are each other's flip side, right? Like the fear that woman was feeling when writing that article about her child growing up too fast is ultimately, I think, a question of like, what if my child has that like fear reaction that I know I've experienced and doesn't know how to handle it, right? Although I doubt she could articulate it in that way because she wants it to be about the Lord instead. So there's this, like I said, this interview with Guillermo del Toro. It's a young woman asking him basically like, how did he integrate darker themes into his Pinocchio movie while still making it palatable to a younger audience? And this is what he says.
I never think about, like, when the difficulty of this movie was when they said, is it for kids? I said, no, it's not going to be made for kids, but kids can watch it if their parents talk to them. People think about kids and they think about Hamlin movies in the 80s and 90s, but a kid now is Greta Thunberg. A kid now is very complex. He's living in a post-ecological disaster, a pandemic, murder, inequality. I mean, it's a completely different reality. So I think the people that cannot take it is the parents. The kids can take it.
How do you ground the anxieties of that cultural moment in a way that kids are able to understand, that also gives them emotional latitude to grapple with what their feelings are rather than condescending to them?
It justifies their fear too.
Yeah.
It's like, they're like, I'm scared of the world.
Yeah.
And these guys are coming in and saying, hey, you have every right to be. There's some really scary shit out there. What you're feeling is valid and good, actually. You should totally like steel yourself for a very terrifying future.
Yeah. Hello to the entire American homeschooling movement.
Exactly. Exactly. Because it's really... Honestly, when you
like just stay at home, keep your kids out of harm's way, and sell Amway.
Yep.
Like,
and when you dig into it, it does come down to the fears and paranoias that the parents have, an unwillingness to engage with the wider world around them. We see this in the way that younger people are often also being radicalized.
And the government feeds into it too. Like, I mean, there's this whole thing where everyone is obsessed with human trafficking, and people are blaming it on like true crime podcasts, but true crime podcasts don't cover human trafficking. Like at most they talk about like Ted Bundy and what he did. And yeah, he did pretend to be like on crutches next to a broken down car or something like that. And he'd take advantage of people. But like they're talking about like, oh yeah, if they leave $1 on your windshield wiper, don't grab it, because in the 3 seconds that you do to grab that dollar and not anything else, they'll kidnap you in the parking lot at Macy's.
Yeah.
It's just like,
or fancies.
And like if you if you go to the airport, you will see at the fucking every airport at the security checkpoint, it will be like a DHS like watch for the signs of human trafficking, and then they just show like a dirty woman in manacles or something. Like it doesn't even show you what the signs would be. It's just like, be careful, there are 3 people being trafficked right now on either side of you.
Look to your left, look to your right.
They look like Dickensian orphans, and it's like, that's not really what's happening. That's not what's the plot of Taken is not what human trafficking is.
Right.
It's a different thing, and it is being pushed by police. And I mean, police are also just like insane because of their like Facebook groups and their weird little communities. That like there was a story out of Texas where some lady had her 8-year-old son walked home, and it was a half mile from wherever he was to home. And so he was walking by a neighbor's house. The neighbor's like, are you lost? He's like, no, I'm walking home. And it was just a few blocks away. And that neighbor called the police. The police arrested the mom. She's going to be like sentenced to jail. And the police told her, you know, your son could be trafficked.
Oh, come on.
Oh my God.
Like, no, he won't be actually.
In fucking suburban Texas or whatever.
Oh
like,
God, it's just like,
They thought The Black Phone was a documentary.
Yeah.
Like Ethan Hawke was going to jump out of a van.
We are teaching people and their children that they need to be, and the more deep, but it's not exclusive to this, but the more embedded you get into like these right-wing and evangelical communities, the more you see it. It's like, you have to be afraid. You have to keep the kid inside.
But it's
They're
fear
gonna
of
get
the
groomed.
wrong
They're going to get groomed by the
things.
teachers.
The
only safe place is your church. Children never get hurt in church.
Yeah. And look, ironically, you know what else you find in those groups? A lot of Minion memes.
Yeah. And really, I don't think it's too much of a reach to say that I actually think that in a way all of this fucking shit is connected. I think that not to be too fucking Glenn.
Bringing your neighbor's chili is abuse.
I'm fucking Glenn Beck with my pin board here, connecting everything all together.
You're Charlie Kelly, let's be very clear.
The nice thing about an easily palatable and saleable product like Minions is that it can be whatever you want it to be, and that it doesn't force anything out of anyone.
Yeah, your Minion can be right-wing, your Minion can be left-wing.
It doesn't matter as long as it sells.
Your Minion can be an alt-centrist. That's up to you.
Your Minion can wake up hungover in a hotel room.
I was going to say.
After a 3-day bender.
My Minion is a Revacholian nationalist.
Necktie will tell it.
Check out our episode on Disco Elysium from last week. It's a real corker.
But yeah, I mean, just like the Minions, we don't have an ending. Nothing ends. It just keeps going. Someone's stealing our crowns and melting them down for the gold in them so that they can sell them back to despicable dentists. But the real resolution that you have here is that you can always follow us on social media.
You sure can.
You can find us on Twitter for the time being if you're there. I am at Spock's Brian. No more underscore. The original Spock's Brian is gone. I am now the only Spock's Brian.
Yes,
Josh can be found at Bosch J.
Yep.
AJ can be found at The Fuzzy Mask. We can be found at The Worst of All Possible Worlds, TWOAPW. You type it into the search bar. Either way, it'll show up. And we have a Tumblr. And
as of a few days ago,
I think it's just The Worst of All Possible Worlds. Look for that. And we made a Facebook page for The Worst of All Possible Worlds. Have we done anything with them yet? No, but
we're going to post lots of Minions memes. So, stay tuned.
There's one quote on the Tumblr from Cool Voltaire.
Oh, good.
That says, "I'm Cool Voltaire."
Quotations from Chairman Cool Voltaire.
Yes. That's my favorite Albie play.
Social media is up in the air right now, but we still got people listening to us, so fuck it.
And if you like what you heard today, obviously, check out our back catalog on Patreon. $5 a month gives you access to all sorts of cool shit. And we hope you check it out.
That is patreon.com/worstofall.
So I feel like watching the Minions movie is a lot like gazing into the abyss, because you can yell and scream into it as much as you want, but it's not going to affect it. The abyss is just going to keep growing and growing because it has franchise potential. But occasionally, if you try and chip at the sides of it and try and find some meaning at the core of it, the abyss will speak back to you.
Oh yeah? What does it say?
Banana.
Oh, God.
Come on.
I'm the worst of all possible AJs.
I'm the worst of all possible Brians.
And I'm the worst of all possible Joshes. See you next week.
Minions, baby!